Check. Why is the mic separate from whatever? Check. Was I double audioing that whole time? That's terrible. All right, getting started soon. Hit that like, everybody. Share the show. Are you going to be posting all your podcasts for 8 hours straight? No. No, I will not. Almost there. Hit that like, everybody. I think we're going to be good for Tara Dublin rocking us in the second hour. Yes. Here we go. I think that's true. Oh, nice. Okay, so Cliff will be joining me first hour or vice versa. What's happening, Andrea? Either way, I'm ready for both of them. I'll make it happen. On a skirt. As long as they're not both at the same hour, which requires a lot of finagling on my part. Now, let's see. Can I show you guys? I'm just, hold on. I'm going to show you guys something that has this work right away. Play. I don't want it to play like that. Oh, rat. Get out of here. Okay. I think I got it. Okay, I think we're ready. I think I ought to go. Welcome to the show, everybody. Good morning. It's Housemarks Mornings, Megaworldwide. I am back. That's right, back in my regular space. I am returned from Tennessee. If I'm a little loopy today, I apologize. Had two shows last night, Both went great. Really great time. Super fun. Um, just overall, the audience was awesome. It's nice to perform with the other performers, Don and Sean and Courtney and Craig, and it was just a good time had by all. And adding a second show and then flying out this morning at 5 a.m. Central Time to get back here by now, so that I could be with you guys. It's a lot. So if I'm only going on about 3 hours sleep, so if I seem a little loopy or chattier than usual or less chatty than usual, I don't know. It'll work out either way. But that's speaking of chatty. Hi chat room. How are you guys doing? Did you have a good Sunday? Was it crazy? Okay. Can I show you what my brain went to work on and understand that I did like I did my show, did the afternoon show. I couldn't do the nighttime show on Friday because they gave me a lot of extra work to do. It was adorable at this Rock and Pod thing, um, on Friday night. But then when I at that thing, I found out I originally thought for this weekend I was only doing punchlines and backlines the show last night. And then they asked me to do the Rare Hair Jam to sing a song, and I was like, yes, I'm glad to do that. Found out it was Friday, which meant I had to come in 2 days early instead of 1 day early. But I did it anyways because I was like, I'll visit with my family, and I'm glad I did because I got to see my cousin who doesn't live in Nashville, who just happened to be visiting. The timing was perfect, and so we had lunch at the Peg Leg uh, Pig restaurant. Don't get me started, but this is a friend of my cousin's started this barbecue restaurant, and this is the symbol for it, the Peg Leg Pig. And so it's because the guy who owns the place is an amputee. It's a long story. Anyways, great food. We had a lovely time. It was lovely to see my relatives. And then I did that show. Then while I was doing the Rare Hair Jam, they said, "Oh, by the way, tomorrow at the Rockin' Pod, you're booked all day from 10 till 6." I didn't know this. I did not know this at all. Okay. I was not aware that I thought I was, like I said, I was doing the first show and then I kind of did the other one as a favor because whatever. And so the idea of doing like 10 to 6 podcasts all day, I'm like, oh dear God. And they set up a table for me. I'm like everybody else I show up and they all have like merch on their table and stuff they're gonna sign like it's a Comic-Con or one of those fan things. And all I've got is a table because I didn't know I was doing it. Not that I necessarily have stuff to bring, but I guess I could have. I mean, I've got a lot of 01 t-shirts I could probably hand out. But still, yes, it was HalCon 2025, right? Um, so anyways, I was like, I have my radio show, and they're like, well, we'd have to reschedule like 8 of these things to shuffle them around. I'm like, oh dear God. So, or 3 of them out of the 8. So I contacted Johnny and I pre-taped the show early, as some of you know, because I had to get it out of the way. And then as soon as I was done, I raced over there and I did, I think, somewhere between 9 and 10, maybe 12 podcasts all day, like 20-minute increments, and then a couple of them that were like a half hour or whatever. So by like 6 o'clock, I was done. And then my cousin's business is she owns a Orange Theory franchise in Nashville. So I have been there a bunch of times, but I've never gone. So I was like, well, I should probably work out while I'm here. So I'll schedule it for Sunday morning because I don't have any plans Sunday morning, as far as I know. And so yeah. So I schedule it for 9:30 a.m. I misjudged how far it was from my hotel, so I called them and rescheduled for 10:30. But I did an hour of Orange Theory, which is like endurance and weightlifting, on Sunday morning, which was great. But I was a sweaty mess. I was lucky my room had the place I rented I always get a place with a kitchenette, and this one happened to have washer dryers as well, thank God. Or my luggage would have been soaked coming home because I was quite sweaty. So I do that. Then I have brunchish with Craig Gass and Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch, which is lovely. We went to First Watch and had food, and it was a lovely conversation about comedy and people we know and whatever. And then we had those 2 shows last night, and all during this, half of my brain is like, "This is awesome." Oh, and can I just say, on a side note, of all the podcasts I did, everybody was really nice. A lot of music lovers. It's Rocket Pod, so it's all podcasts that have to do with music or around pop culture and albums and stuff. It was perfect. It was really nice. I had way too little time for each of them. I will do full shows with all of these folks at some point because that my little person that was moving me, they were multiple because they needed several to wrangle me, were tapping me on the shoulder going, "Stop talking. You have to go to the next one." And it was adorable. They were all, I pity them because you know me. I could be, oh, there we go. I bet this is Cliff happening on the, yes, it is. Hold on one second. I'll start my virtual camera so he can see me and I'll bring Cliff in. So there he is. And I'll solo him in there. And then I should be able to grab him. I think he can hear me. Hold on. Wait, nope. Okay. And I can hear him. Check, check it, check.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Give me 1 second. So, can I just say on a personal note, I got to meet Keith Roth, who's one of the hosts. He hosts Ozzy's Boneyard, and he hosts some of the Hair Nation shows,
Nice.
and like Summer and I for real, like whenever we get in the car, Keith Roth is the guy that's on the radio doing the songs. And I gotta say, could not have been a cooler, nicer, sweeter dude. I was so happy to find that out. And you know how you never tell. By the way, I'll bring in our dear friend Cliff Schechter. There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
I can
Looking
hang,
good,
dude. I love this
feeling
story
good.
already because I'm
Yeah.
into this stuff
So
too. So
yes. So Keith, like I know Keith, just from his voice. I've never met the man. I've never seen him
yep.
in person until this time. And he looks the part, I would like to say to everybody. So it's sometimes when, like Eddie Trunk's one of those guys who knows metal, knows rock. And when you see him, you're like, I didn't ask to speak to a manager. The service is fine. Like he's such a normal looking dude comparatively to what he talks about that it's a little odd, right? It's kind of like
Right.
me in politics. It's like when people expect a policy wonk, they don't expect a guy, in a amputee pig shirt with Mad Mardigan hair.
I would
And
actually
and I
say that. By the way, the Mad Mardigan hair, great call and great
yeah,
call out to the late Val Kilmer, who
yep,
I'm still hurt over. Watched
me too.
Tombstone again last night just to
Yeah,
watch that performance again, and we'll be doing that. Um,
say when.
but that's right. That's right. Johnny Ringo. I think
Yeah,
someone
Johnny
just stepped
Ringo, you look
over
like
your
somebody
grave.
just walked over your grave.
That's right. In
I'm in my
vino
prime.
veritas. That's right.
Yeah,
There's just so
so
many great
good.
lines. So many
Yeah.
great. He should have won an Academy Award for that. That's all I'm
Oh
gonna
my
say.
God. Yeah. By the
He
way,
that was
posthumous Academy Award, period, end of story. I think
he should.
actually there should be a category for the in case you missed it Oscar, where they go, you know what? 10 years ago when this movie came out, we were all fixated on this shit. But the movie that had legs, 10, 15 years later, this is the one everybody's quoting, and nobody can get this performance out of their mind. And Philip
You
Seymour
know what's
Hoffman in
funny?
The Big Lebowski deserves a supporting actor Oscar and posthumously and Jesus Christ did Val Kilmer carry that movie on his
Oh, I
back.
mean, I was gonna say,
Tombstone.
in general, I think they should do something. They added something to baseball, for example, like they couldn't get everybody in the all-star team, so they said they'd add an extra person overall each team. You could vote for somebody
Yes.
extra to go who just deserved it in general. And I feel like they could do their specific Oscar, every year, but there should just be one given out because somebody gave an amazing performance, like just an extra. And who gives a shit? Like
Right.
whether it was a lead role, a supporting role, just somebody who was amazing. And as you said, I think they should be able to look back. Maybe you do it a decade later or something, because
Yes.
I'm sorry, some of that shit never holds up. It's like the stuff that's trendy at the time wins. And then
Right.
we all know what movies are lasting. I've been a number of times, I've got some relatives in Tucson. I've been to Tombstone. And I'm telling
Mhm.
you, out of every movie you've ever seen about anything to do with that place, when you walk around there, you think of Val Kilmer. You think of that
Right.
performance. That is
Yeah. Do you know the
it's the
do you know the story
yeah.
of where he got the accent from?
I
So
don't,
he
and I would
won
love to hear it.
oh
I
my
didn't mean
God.
to take
He
you off of your story about
not at
metal, which
all.
I can also talk about
Uh,
all day.
uh,
Go.
all I gotta leave you with is Keith Roth looks like a rock star and kind of like it like like he could be in the kind of Gilby Clark style. If you know what, people know what Gilby looks like. He's wearing like a baggy hat and a vest or whatever, but just looks cool and put together as a rock star still. That's what Keith
Yep.
Roth looks like. So when you're listening and you hear his like kind of like he gargles clamshells or whatever the hell he does to have a voice as deep and gravelly as that, that's what he looks like. And sweet as the day is long. Met his wife. I was so happy. Like I was like, it's such a great thing that he turned out to be not a dick, but also just really, I cannot be vociferous in my praise enough in support of Keith Roth on Ozzy's Boneyard. No sale, no pitch, no like me trying to get on serious, none of that. Just like stiff arming all that shit. He turned out to be such a cool
Invite
guy.
Hal on.
Yeah,
Invite
right.
Hal on.
No, I was just like, because he and Don Jameson have like a sports podcast, like they call it Rock Strap, which is like a rock and jockstrap kind of reference, which is something Don would come up with. But it's great. It was just great talking to him about a bunch of stuff. We got off on a lot of tangents, but Val Kilmer. So
Yes.
he uh, wanted to. When he was developing the character, he was trying to find what this guy would sound like. And then, like if you watch There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis is just doing a John Huston impersonation because
Right.
John Huston was that age. He lived through he was born in 1880 something. He would have been formative when he learned how to speak during those
Yeah,
years.
that
And
voice, yeah, John
now,
Huston's is
Mr.
just
Gitch,
right.
now my daughter is someone that's
Right.
very important to me. And that's how he talked. And so Daniel Day-Lewis just lifted, now I'm an oil man and this is my boy. Like he just is straight up doing John Huston. But
Right.
Kilmer went to this vocal coach, this dialect coach that does a lot of plays and then did movies. And he's like, there are no recordings of people from that age.
Right.
And he goes, I want him to be a gentleman, one of these like, because he speaks Latin. He clearly is an
Right. He's well
educated man.
educated, clearly. Yeah.
And that's hard to find. You'd find some like people who got an old hick on a gramophone and recorded them speaking to set, but where are these guys? And so he got a recording of this guy from he called it, but he goes, who do I do it? He goes, I got it. I got it. I got it perfect. I'll send you a recording of it right now. And he sent him this tape of it. And the guy was like, well, I was born in 1872. And he spoke so slowly that
Right. And
everything he said was
purposefully, like
funny.
everything enunciated, and
Yes.
everything is,
And so
I mean,
he just sped that up, basically. He just took
that's
that
Latin,
guy.
darling.
Yeah, right.
Apparently, John
In
Ringo is an
vino
educated man.
veritas. In
Now I know
wine,
I hate
there is
him.
truth. Right. Yep. I
I
hate
think I
him.
hate him.
That whole thing where he's like tickling the pearl handled Colt that he has on his thing
Yes.
like that. When that's to draw your attention from the fact that he's already put his hand on the other gun, and that's where he
Mhm.
pulls out both of them. And that one scene where like, you too drunk, you're probably seeing double. I got two guns,
2
one for
guns. I mean,
both
just
of you.
that's right. Every line like that was delivered
So
so
poetry.
perfectly, so in
Yeah,
character, and I won't take away from, obviously, I always think you want a voice of the
yeah,
West, Sam Elliott being there to
yeah,
just lend the voice of the West too. I'm not gonna Val Kilmer still far and away stole every that, but
yeah.
is a nice supporting, in my
Oh my God.
opinion. I mean, Kurt Russell was
Sam
fine,
Elliott.
but Sam Elliott with the voice of the West, like it was just perfect.
Jesus, like he is effectively, he's very much sort of the personality anchor in that because he's just a real being. There's an
Yeah,
amazing character going on with Val Kilmer, but at this,
right.
which is just amazing and joyful and fun to watch. And that, like, the storyline between him and his Hungarian female handler, who's like, she's like, he's dying of tuberculosis and she's basically giving him head. Like, she slides and he goes, you certainly are an angel,
That's right.
although
He
you may
throws all that
also
out
be
there. Yeah.
the Antichrist, right? Like that, um, that part of it, it was just, I mean, it's so beautiful. And so, anyways, I went through a big Val Kilmer like retrospect because I love The Saint, holy shit, did
Oh,
people
I was gonna
sleep on the
say, I
Saint?
don't feel like that one's given enough credit. I mean, because you hear people talk about Top Gun, which is fantastic.
Right?
Obviously, he was great in that, and you hear and that
Real
performance,
genius.
rightly so, in Tombstone is always Real Genius is another one, but I've never thought like I thought he was fantastic as the Saint. I loved it, and I
And
was
you know
sad they didn't make another one.
those characters were his. He came up with all of them. That was not a big part. They had him dressing in little outfits to like sneak
Yeah,
through places in the original draft, but he didn't become the people. And he was like, this guy doesn't know who he is. He can't even decide on a name. So why don't you just make him like an impersonator? You know how they don't know quite who they are. And so he
yeah,
started creating all these characters and he falls right into them. And, Thomas More,
yeah, all the
and
Saints, right?
yeah. And like him dressed in, and, Martin, uh, was it Martin de Borgia or whatever? He was like the Spanish one. I'm named for a
That's
Peruvian
right.
saint, whatever.
Oh,
And my
was he
favorite
the
part,
yeah, was that the artist? There was the tortured artist and
yeah,
I
who
mean, it
looked,
just
yeah,
was
not from
you
South
make me wanna
Africa.
sit down, like, I just wanna sit
I
and
want,
rewatch all of these
I want
movies
to take
now.
you to my home
I
in South Africa. She goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "My name is." I don't want to tell you my name. He just gets up and
yeah,
runs
sorry,
out.
I don't think I wanted to tell you my name.
My
I mean,
favorite
he's just
line in the whole thing, there's two of them, and it's in Martin de Porres, where he's going through security. Well, first he's on the plane with the woman, and he's dangling the really pretty necklace that's got the chip hidden
right.
inside of it, right? And she goes, "It's very beautiful," and he goes, "Sit," whatever, and he hands it to her, and he goes, "It was my mother's," and tells her the story, and she goes, um, "Where are you going?" She goes, "Well, my husband has sent me away because there is no heat in Moscow, and so I'm going to live with my mother," and he goes, "Married." Not even a year, and already this bastard has a girlfriend. Sorry. Not my business. Not my like it's just like she's like, how much you know so much? And he's like, I'm named after a Peruvian saint who had the gift of laying on of hands, which is just such of like a pass he makes on her. And then they're like looking for the chip when he's going through security, and they're like, somebody goes, he doesn't have the chips on him, and he goes, the chips, you English, we've got fish and chips. On the plane, I had the chicken. And I was
No, that's right. You're just
that's
reminding me
his
because
line.
that I haven't seen that lately the way I just saw. So I need to watch that again to remind myself because
On the
I
plane, I had
used to
the
know all
chicken.
those lines too.
Like,
And it's just,
that
oh,
line is so fucking good, and it's him. And everybody's like,
um,
I like the Doors and the Doors and Doors. He's fantastic in it, no question. But it's partly what killed him because fuck Oliver Stone. And Oliver Stone was like, you should try shooting up. Just try it because it's not that big a deal. I did it back in the day, and other people do it, whatever. And no, fuck you, dude. I'll fuck Oliver Stone into a cock. I
that should
hate
have been
that
the
dude.
response. Well, he's
Yeah,
a
it's a
crazy
shame.
person who
Yes.
hasn't he become a Putinite at this point? Like all the other
Yes.
far leftists
I
gone
I would argue,
insane?
here's my thing. I would argue he always has been for a very long time, and that all of his
Probably.
stuff is taking a giant shit on American culture and the American
That's right.
government from a subterfuge point of view. It's one thing to like look at things warts and
Right,
all, which you
it's not
should
that no,
do.
there's honest critiques that are
Yes,
important of what we did.
right.
Vietnam, of that era, and but you look back and you're like, everything is conspiratorial and
Yep.
everything is
We're
based
the
on sort of
source of
saying
all
that
evil in the world.
we're the source of our yeah, and that's where they all end up who end up like becoming Putinites is they end up in a place where it's like they don't try to defend him. They do the whataboutism, which is just, but America is so
Right.
evil and so terrible. And we're like, you're sitting next to a guy who literally goes out of his way to bomb hospitals and kill children and
Who
kidnap them from Ukraine and
one of the
whatever. And we don't need to go
oligarchs,
into Putin's
I think even
laundry list.
more like a personal level. He's sitting across from a guy who ordered a hit on an oligarch who fled the country with his family, killed the guy's children in front of him, pushed his wife out a fucking window, and then blew the guy's head off with a shotgun and tried to make it look
Right.
like a suicide. It was the most ham-handed bullshit in the world. And he's the guy who like talked them through it. Like he didn't go, do what we do. He was like, it's got to look like this. That's how Putin does
I mean,
stuff. And
that's right. That's the thing is right. KGB
it's
guy. I mean,
nowhere
you want to make
close.
sure someone. I'm sorry.
It's nowhere close to like the parallels. Like even with Trump, like Trump is Timu Hitler. If everybody wants to call him Hitler or whatever, but thank God he's Timu Hitler because he's too fucking stupid to pull all this stuff off. Which I think brings
He
us
is.
to
But I
the
would say, and
conversation.
it just brings us back
Yeah,
to the to that. I will say that he's failed in that he's too stupid, too sort of emotionally addled, and the rest. But he has the evil to do it. I mean, there's simply no
Well,
doubt in my mind, anyhow, that he's
I
as
think he's
evil
got
as
the
someone like
pass.
Putin.
I think he's got the pass through evil to do it. I think he can act tough and say something, but if he had to see it, he would vomit.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, he's a complete wimp. I agree with you there.
right,
But as long as he's behind closed doors and he can, just the way he wanted to fire people, but he always has somebody else do it because he's too much of a wimp to do it.
he's the internet troll version of Hitler, which is like
That's
everybody's
right.
talks big, but if they had to confront it themselves,
But
they'd
he'll
fail
have other
miserably.
people, right,
Yeah.
he'll have other people. I mean, the classic case, right, is, what's his, Kilmar Abrego, and I'm forgetting his last Garcia, who, I mean,
Mhm.
what we're
Yes.
dealing with in El Salvador, to me, that is the very heart of darkness, the embodiment
Yes.
of evil, is knowing an innocent person is sitting somewhere in a prison with terrorists who did not do what you claimed he did, and you've now even been forced to admit it, and admitted
Right.
that, but still say, well, but we don't have to bring this person back. That you so lack any compassion, any empathy that you don't care. And that's all I
Yeah.
mean is he'll fail at being Putin in a lot of other ways. And you're
Right.
right, including he could never do it himself because he's too much of a little wussy little wimp.
Right.
But he's a despicable, like I do think he has the same empty soul. The
I
same, to
agree.
take it back to
But
where
I
we
would
began.
say
Where we
my
began. What makes Johnny Ringo do what he does, right?
got a big
Because
hole
he
in
can
the
never
middle of
kill
his
enough.
chest.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
got a great big hole in the middle. Sorry, we're always at this delay. I don't mean to,
Yeah,
you and
yeah.
I, like,
And
like
you
I
and
don't
I
mean to.
both chat the same way, right? Yeah, he's got a big hole in his chest and he can't kill enough or steal enough to ever fill it. And that's Trump's whole thing is he's the hands-off version of it. And like I said, there we are lucky in to some degree because there are definitely hands-on fuckers like Stephen Miller around him that don't mind getting their hands dirty. That if they were in his position, they would appoint even more evil people in those positions, and it would happen even faster than it's happening. Now, one of the things
Right.
I wanted to point out before I show everybody what my fixation was, because my moment. Let's see if I can bring this up. Excuse me.
'Cause,
That
I think the way I'd put it is Stephen Miller and some of those are obsessed with the evil of it. They
right
love the evil. To Trump, he is
makes them
evil, but that's a
feel tough.
byproduct. It makes him feel tough, but it's a byproduct. In other words, if evil stuff happens, he has no compassion, but he's really about greed
Right.
and vanity. And so those
Yes.
come first, and he'll hurt whoever he has to, let other people do it and whatever. But it's not the pure evil that leads with him. It's the loading his pockets with other people's money that leads. Whereas someone like Stephen Miller, you're exactly right, who sadly is much more competent than Trump too.
Right.
If he were in that position, it would be worse. I agree
And
fully.
Trump is squeamish about a lot of things because he does have this exaggerated sense of self. His own ego keeps him from being caught doing certain things.
Yeah.
He'll I mean, we could do a psychological breakdown of him. It doesn't benefit us if he's got people in line who will do stuff in the same way that Hitler, like the 12 guys that came up with the final solution, you could argue were more evil than
Well,
Hitler
right.
because
And the
he could
ones
be
who actually
dismissive
put
about
it
it.
into place, the
Right.
ones who actually were managing it.
But Hitler never
I
would have
mean,
had a problem carrying it out. Hitler killed people directly and, also, just like Putin. Putin is that way as well. There are other leaders like Erdogan, Orban, and others.
or
I would
yep,
even argue, whatever, not, yeah, like MBS, that they're the same way, that
they are.
they're this
That one that
close
was
to
in
it.
the Philippines before Duterte, or he used to
Yeah.
go out and
Holy
they would
shit.
go and they
Yeah.
would kill homeless people and people they thought were drug dealers, and apparently he'd go out on some of the trips with them. Yeah, that kind of guy.
Right. It was like that bit that Ricky Gervais said that they were at one point one of the dictators was killing intellectuals in the country, and the way they could tell they were intellectuals because they had eyeglasses. And he's like, "Well, if they were really that intellectual, wouldn't they just take off their glasses when they see him coming? They're like, oh fuck,
Right,
smart guy that
right,
way.
right.
I never see
Was
him
that
anyways. Jesus.
maybe was that Pol Pot? It may have been
Yes, it
because
was Pol
that was the
Pot. I
place
think
where
so.
they targeted all of the intellectuals immediately because
So
everybody was supposed to become agrarian communists, and that didn't work out
right.
so well.
So I started working on this thing, and I'll see. I don't really do keynotes or whatever, but so this will lead us into our obvious conversation about imports and all that stuff because we haven't had a chance to talk about that shit. And this is kind of as a jumping off point. This is where my brain went so much so that I had to start making a notes breakdown in Keynote to start like aligning this in a way that people could understand because it's so many fucking moving parts. But it's
Can I ask you a
singular.
quick question?
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, like, I'm trying to remember. Is this the first time we've actually been on air together since you came on the 12-hour Substack thing? It may be,
yeah.
because you missed a
You're a
few
busy
shows,
boy.
and then I got the flu after that.
Ah,
That's what you get for doing a 12-hour live
sure.
stream. And I got a bad case of it where
Mm.
I was down for like 2 weeks, and then and then a third week where I couldn't do that much, and then there
Then
was
you got
a
to catch
spring
up and
break
make
with.
up for lost time. And yeah,
Right, and then you get behind everything. There was spring break with, my son kids, but my older son's graduating
yes,
from high school, and so, I realized we missed like the two couple times you could have me on, I missed coming on,
right.
and then there were some other times where you weren't during the show because somebody asked me on my live stream the other day, like, "Are you still going on with Hal?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we plan to. It's been like 5 weeks or something like
Oh
that, or
yeah, yeah. It's
it's
been
crazy."
you and I both are have a very distinct plan on what we think our response is going to be to a lot of this stuff, and I feel like there was a little bit of occasionally. I have no doubt that there will be like a break shotgun play where we will be going opposite directions for a bit with the same goal in mind of being
Yeah.
open when the pass happens or whatever to try and do this. So, you of all people, I think you and I are both kind of like always looking for the slot to slip into as far as where the next play will happen. And
Well, we also both do about 47 different things, and
this is also true. Yes. Yeah.
that can tend
Busy
to
as people in our region of the country that we're from often say, busy as a fiddler's elbow. But let me show you something
there you
real
go.
quick and then I'll get your thoughts on it. So I started doing this breakdown of like the just one aspect of Trump's tech bullshit that he's doing in this. And I think if I go down, okay. So let's see if I can throw this in here. Show like, okay. Yeah, they're all in here. Okay. So one of the things he's been doing is the Lutnick came out yesterday and said there's in the next month or two there's going to be a limit on semiconductors, and they had just protected all of Apple's shit from semiconductor tariffs, largely from Taiwan, which I don't even know why we would ever fucking have any tariffs at all from them because that basically they only make stuff that helps our military and helps our high-end computers, and yeah, that's it. Like they
Yeah.
don't.
It
They're
wasn't
not
like when you
swamping
and
our
I were
toy industry.
kids where everything was made in Taiwan.
Totally. Now it's not. Now it's just the high end shit that we need. So,
Yeah.
when you one of the things is they outlawed, like Biden put a thing in place where you couldn't get like H100 chips. China cannot get H100s. Okay, they are the high end chips that are used. They're like 4 nanometers.
Was
They're
this
the
part of the CHIPS Act?
yes, and
That's what I thought. Okay.
as part of the like defense against China's advances in AI and all that kind of stuff, this was the absolute no go. Like you'll get in deep military shit with our country if you give China H100s. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and the reason is you can create a computer with about 256 of them, which is not a lot. They're expensive. They're about 10 grand a piece, 10 to 25, depending on where you get them from and who makes them. But that's the realm of them. Then H100 is about 10 grand. So a cluster of them is about $15 million. So if a startup
Which
wants
isn't
to start their own,
expensive if you're China.
holy fucking shit, it's cheap. Now, but that
It
gets us
may
to
be
the other
expensive
point is
for you or me, but for China, that's not so expensive.
so the Biden administration also recognized that there was a dual use problem. GPUs, specifically the 4090s, which were the highest grade, the 4080s, the highest grade of the NVIDIA GPUs, could be used for
Mhm.
AI training. That's how people started doing it. The crypto mining and AI training. They were everybody trying to get all the 4080s and 4090s they could get their hands on for those particular things. As AI broke and crypto mining became a normalcy, that's what everybody was jockeying for. And there's a lot of them in the world. And then crypto, the bottom fell out because nobody trusts it. So it's just right now, it's just like a fucking
Because
cubby hole. People put their
because
money
it's
in
the
between shit.
actual Ponzi scheme, unlike
Oh
Social
my
Security.
fucking God.
It's the Ponzi
Right.
scheme that Elon was really referring to? Right.
So they
Okay, go ahead.
put so yeah, so crypto mining took a shit And then there were all these 4080s and 4090s on the market again. The price dropped. You could get them, instead of them costing you $5,000 or whatever, they cost you 1,200. So gamers were bitching, but people who started training AI were like, "Oh, good, I can now afford a bunch of these." And they started just buying them up. The United States bought them up. Europe bought them up. China was late to the game. They don't have as many, but they definitely
Okay.
have a bunch. And if they just went to all the computers they have for gaming software that are at Weibo and all these places and just pilfered them, they have a shit ton of 4080s and 4090s sitting around that they could put into an array. So I did a little study on this and tried to put together like images so it was easier. So like an H100 cluster, this is the supercomputer that if you have, folks, if you're listening to my voice, if you got $7.5 to $15 million laying around and you want to put it to some good use and redefine your entire state, build an H100 cluster in the United States someplace. It'll take a lot of power. You'll probably need to live near a nuclear plant, or you'll need to live in a big city because they'll need a big power draw. Your power
And
bill's going
everybody
to be
wants to really
fucked.
live near a nuclear plant, as we know. So
Right.
that's nice.
But with that cluster, you could create, thinking software on a scale that you could redefine everything. And that's what Elon Musk is arguably trying to do with all the Blackwell chips from NVIDIA in Memphis and whatever. But he
Right.
largely is building a crypto facility. Okay, so but that's the top of it. High performance, high power use, very good software because they use this NVIDIA Link way of linking them all together so they all kind of operate as one big giant chip. Okay. And that's what
Yep.
makes the cluster act as like this tiny little chip, is instead of like a bunch of them just chained together and there's these weak spots in between, the links between the chains, all of them act as one. And that's really impressive. And you can't get them in China. That's why there's export restrictions, have been since the CHIPS Act. Then, let's see if we can do this. Yeah.
Which is how, again, if you're trying to rebuild
Right.
manufacturing and your capabilities, if it comes when it comes to not having to rely on
Right.
others for key military supplies and that kind of thing, that's how you would do it, as
Right.
opposed to just threatening a number of your allies with tariffs that you're just going to go back on anyhow because you're a moron and never thought them out. And generally do it while your trade representative is sitting in Congress and has no idea it's going on, so he
Right.
looks like an idiot too.
I've said multiple times that the people that are involved in this right now, Howard Nutlick and fucking Bessent and
Not
Trump
like
himself and nobody in the fucking White House, none of them are intellectually capable of even contemplating the technology that they're talking about, and neither does Elon Musk. He knows enough about it to talk about it at cocktail parties, but he fucking doesn't understand it unless somebody goes, dude, and tells him something. Who Joe Rogan's it into his fucking ear. He doesn't know anything about it until it's too late.
he is
So
not smart. I really hope
no.
people understand this by seeing him now, that
So
he took
yes,
money from apartheid emerald mines. That's how he got in with Peter Thiel at PayPal, not because he knew anything. And
right.
then once that
Teal
went
needed his
well,
money. Teal's a smart guy, and
Thiel needed his
Teal.
money, and then he took that money from PayPal once they sold it and leveraged that next. And he bet on, and he was able to had enough money to bet on his own on Tesla and that kind of thing. And of course, he knew we wanted to go into EVs. That he was able to get all sorts of subsidies, that and all sorts of tax breaks. But I mean, I get
Oh
so
yeah.
tired of this. Somebody
Thanks,
just did an
Obama.
analysis of his speaking and and thinking, and said he has somewhere between like 100 to 105 IQ. That sounds about right. Like, am I saying he's a
Yeah.
complete absolute, like, is he able to
He's
function?
not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is he a genius? Is he a very smart person? He's not. He
He's
just
not
isn't.
spree killer stupid, nor is he Hannibal Lecter. He's just kind of
Exactly.
like shit end bank robber. That's his
Yes, and
brain scan.
exactly. He's like guy who is part of the team that did the first attack on the World Trade Center that killed 6 people and gets the whole group busted because he goes back to the place where they rented the vehicle that they put the car bomb in
To get his
and asks
deposit.
it says it was stolen and wants his
Right.
deposit back, of $150, and ends up getting them all caught because of that. That's the kind of, in
Mhm.
other words, pretty
Yeah.
dumb, and his emotions and other stuff get in the way of any even intelligence he has. So it turns him into and all of his anger, which turns him into more of an idiot. So
Yeah.
is the way
Okay.
I
So
look at
black. So if you were able to get black market H100s, if you're China, you can probably get new 8 or 10 or maybe 24, 25 of them. These are they run in these cycles of 8, by the way. That's how the boards that they go on are built. So the circuit boards you slap these things onto go in clusters of 8, and then you build these what they call pizza boxes. You slide these kind of, these flat end servers type computers into these racks, and then you create, it looks like a refrigerator, and you just stack these kind of things with a bunch of pizza boxes on top of each other, and each one is one of these clusters. Is a 24 cluster, and then you do a stack of those, and then you have to cool the fuck out of them and all that stuff, and it's very expensive, like I said, and it's kind of almost like having nuclear fissile material in terms of being able to track, because other governments of the world can tell not how your system works, but where it's parked by the energy draw. There's a lot of ways to tell, like ripples in the water. It's like, remember in Hunt for the Red October, the run silent, and you could literally, one guy fell against the hull of the ship, and that showed where the hidden submarine was, because sound
That was
carries like that.
yeah.
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 All of these have that kind of thing. So one of these superpod clusters, which is what you would need to do one of the big AIs, which is probably what they have and what they made DeepSeek out of. They probably actually used 2 parallel of these, honestly, not even a big one, and just ripped ChatGPT off and then stuck their model on top of it, which is,
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It was probably just 2 of those.
No, I
They have
know.
48 of them.
I find it funny, but I don't doubt it.
Right. And so this is what you want. This is the high end. This is what people are building. Like the Blackwell chips or the H100s. This is an equivalent. There's a couple of different ones. AMD has one, Intel has one, but they're like at that level. And you need that many of them for one of these clusters. And then if you're going to do, one that deals with a lot of users and a lot of user input output, you're going to need a cluster for every 50,000 people that use it, as long as they have limited usage. That like thing OpenAI was doing, like an hour a day.
Right.
You'll need, right.
Yeah.
If you got that, you're going to need one per that cluster of people. So boom, 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 boom. You're just going to grow a bunch of these out to just deal with the input output. Okay. So the next in line is the AMD MI300 cluster, which is a commercially available chip. The GPU,
Right.
it's a GPU based one. They're about 10 grand on the black market. There are no export restrictions on them, and they consider moderate performance. Moderate is ChatGPT a year ago, not
Okay.
before ChatGPT.
I'm
And
learning from you
again,
here, by the way, because I don't know this is kind of
right,
cool. I don't know these details.
this
So
is yeah. So this is important. So Trump just removed all the restrictions on these. There had been some on the higher end of these, on the MI300 level clusters. There were
right.
now there are none, but under the CHIPS Act, there were restrictions on some countries, or at a price point, or the number you could have. So they know that if you got 6 of them, who gives a shit? But if you got 3,000 of them, So it takes, to make a cluster of them, you need, say, 800 of them with really good, like, bespoke software written by somebody that lines them all up, which is not that
Yep.
hard, especially when you've got the Chinese military folks focusing on it. So you need a lot more, but they're way cheaper. So for that $15 million you're spending for that smaller cluster, where you'd need a bunch of those clusters and you're in the tens of millions of dollars, you just need, a couple of $1 million, and you could have 2 or 3 of these. And then one step down from that is the RTX 4090, and that's what I've got in this computer for my graphics. And
Okay.
crypto miners use these things like fucking crazy. So much so that the price of the 4080 and the 4090, anything over a 4060, when it went on sale, all the crypto fuckers bought them up, and the gamers in the world got denied because they were expecting this cool new gamer thing that could help you do ray tracing and see amazing game graphics, and they all got bought up by these crypto mining fucks who put 3 of them in a computer, wrapped it in this fucking plastic shit, and dropped it into a ice tank to keep it cool all the time, so it could just run next to a fucking coal plant near the North Korean border. Like, that's where they all fucking went. So what China
Right.
did after the export controls started happening and they started getting denied this stuff, they went and said, fuck you and your crypto mine, and they just seized everybody's crypto mines that these rich assholes like Peter Thiel had put in China because of the low energy costs and stuff. So they have a shit ton of these things. They have
Right.
miles and miles of them, and they're already an array. They're already designed in an array for crypto mining. And with mild tweaking of what you're trying to get out of it, you can create a relatively reasonable AI cluster. Now, will you be able to do the deep reasoning stuff that everybody's doing now and the imaging stuff that you'll see? No. But can you do all of your surveillance work on those? Can you track people's faces and like literally their bone structure in their face with those kind of things? You could do all of China with maybe 4 of these kind of clusters that used to be crypto mines. And there
Right.
are no restrictions on them. And the Biden administration was going, okay, going forward, because they're already out, we can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. But your next 4090 update is restricted. Anything past that, fuck
Right.
that noise. Like even the graphic stuff, they're just stuck. They're fine with ray tracing at that level. Call of Duty looks fine. Nobody needs any more gaming quality than that. If they do, they can build it themselves, but you're not selling it to them anymore because of this. Because you can array these things, and they're
Right.
$1,600 a pop. The first one was 25 grand. The next one's 10. These are 1,600. And China, can devalue their currency. They can leverage through violence. They made a deal with Russia to buy old PCs for their gaming industry. Russia kind of probably thought it was like a commercial back and forth because they need all the fucking money they can to just keep bombing children in hospitals in Ukraine. So they
Right.
fucking sold them all these 4090s that were sitting around that they used for stuff.
Yep.
And so is it as fast as what we're doing? No. But there's a point where good enough is too good.
Yes.
AI has grown
Often.
so fucking
And
fast. And
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, and with the speed at which, like we've even seen in the last year, yeah, I mean, we have to be concerned about that. I mean,
yeah,
again, anything like that in warfare and these kinds of things, well, sometimes they may not be where you are, but if they get to a point where they pass a certain tipping point where they're good enough, it's the danger. And so
yeah,
this would be that.
right. And so I put these together while I was at Rocket Pod because it was just eating my fucking brain while everybody was talking, like watching Howard Nuttlick, which I didn't watch his interview on ABC, the one that apparently got him in the most trouble on purpose, because I'm going to watch it this afternoon on my show with viewers, because I have no doubt my brain will fucking burst into flames at his idiocy. But yeah, you have to understand, like, what's the difference between high and moderate for for like military study development, like near level biological advancement. All I can we always talk about the Rob Glenn rule that we have, which is 99%. It's good enough for 99% of everybody already. It was last year. Now it's way ahead of that shit. That's true of this stuff. Like you can do with CRISPR-Cas9 and last year's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of the models or one of the ones
Right.
you make or the open source ones, you could, in
I only
theory,
use Grok myself.
that's why you talk like all your statistics make you sound like an asshole. No,
That's right. That's why I just make shit up, and I find myself
right.
randomly Heiling Hitler. It's weird.
Yeah, it's odd. You're like Dr. Strangelove, just,
Exactly. That's a good call.
yeah, right. Um, the mein Führer can fuck. So but the
Ah,
point
Peter
is that
Sellers. How we
with
miss
those
thee.
two things, with just last year's AI and CRISPR-Cas9, you could, in theory, and I don't want to terrify people, if you wanted to, you have the means and wherewithal to create a biologically specific racist virus that only targets people of a certain genotype. If you wanted to kill all the Irish or all the black people or all the
Didn't RFK
Hispanic
Jr. say that that already happened with COVID? It was like,
Jews and yeah,
well,
Ashkenazi Jews
Ashkenazi Jews, which is what
and
I am. Like
Chinese.
we were totally cool. It didn't
You
hurt
never
us, which
got
is
it.
I was like
You
awesome.
never got.
I
Yeah, you don't get the flu either, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I
Weird.
never get the flu except for when I got it for 3 weeks recently. But
Yeah, right.
otherwise, I'm great, and when it comes to COVID, I always like it. So in that way, I'm the master race. Where I was just the opposite in Germany, so it's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
So
So that was
I don't
nice
want
of
to terrify
RFK
everybody,
Jr.
but with those two things, you could create a racist disease. Now, granted, again, thankfully we have Timu Hitlers running around and not the real thing. Is that a bunch of these fuckers are also inept enough to where they end up killing themselves? Like there's been a couple of times where like white supremacist groups in the United States have tried to cook up something like this, and
Oh
this
my
is
God,
before
they blow up
20.
their own.
But yeah, well, they before 23andMe, they didn't realize that they were like 8% sub-Saharan
Right,
African or whatever, and
right.
the dude who's
Oops, man,
making it
not quite
keels
as
over. Right.
not quite as master racy as I thought I
No.
was.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's funny. Everything keeps coming back to that 1993 thing. That's the way those guys got busted too. They were mixing another bomb and it blew up in their place by mistake in the
Yes.
Philippines, in Manila, and that's how we caught the rest of the guys. So again, people always try to it's dictators too. And we've learned that when it's Elon or Trump, they always try to turn terrorists and like thieves into the smartest people. And the thing is, I found myself making these arguments all the time because you'd hear from people on the anti-gun control side who would say, "Oh, they're just going to find ways to get around it. They're just going to." I'm like, you have no understanding how stupid most people are. If
Yeah.
you just pass basic laws,
Right.
most of them, if you're trying and you're not purposely undermining the ATF, defunding it, and all the other things you guys do because you're in the
Yeah.
NRA's pocket and the extremists, if you actually try, most of them will do stupid shit and get themselves caught because they're not
Right.
genius,
Also, you'll
and
be able to put them in fucking jail when you do catch them because they will have violated a law that is fairly basic. So you put those
exactly.
books, again, if you're always complaining that they always get out, that's because you keep loosening what the laws are and broadening the definition. So a
That's
judge
right.
finds it really hard to put somebody in jail on a gun charge because they bifurcated and trifurcated the fucking law
Yeah.
out into so many subcategories. And there's always a local politician or somebody who goes, well, I mean, carrying a gun in the immediate commission of a crime, not the idea that you could, because let's
Oh,
say a
Jesus.
tyrannical government decides that you're committing a crime by being a
Yeah,
Trump
let me know
supporter
if anybody
10
sees a
years later.
tyrannical government anywhere.
Fuck.
Because
Yeah, right. Gee
clearly
whiz.
people having guns, people having guns prevented that tyrannical government from being elected. So,
Right.
well, it just was. Oh, again, and that just goes along with how stupid all of this is, because you, as you just pointed out. The fear behind all this, and the bigger reason as our economy and the NATO alliance and
Right.
trade and post the whole setup we've had since Bretton Woods, which they're all too dumb to understand. They're all too locked into grievance to understand that we set this system up purposely. We'd pay more, we'd get to lead, we would ensure safety and stability, and that way we would make sure that we became the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, which we did.
Right.
That was all on purpose, and that was there was a point to all of that, but they're too
Yeah.
dumb and grievance based. And it's the same thing with these guys that we're talking about, is like they can't get out of the way of their own stupidity and emotionally addled nature, so
Thank
they
God.
yes, so they do. They can't do it and not post about it on Facebook, or do
Right.
it and not like every one of these times. As I would say to people, if we took this shit seriously, and I'm not just talking about mass shooters, I'm talking about attempted bombings, I'm talking about
Right.
attempted all these kinds of things. Every one of these guys, just like the most recent one who went after Governor Shapiro, in
Yeah.
another case of what I wrote about today in my Substack, stochastic terrorism, which is people who want to try to let Republicans off the hook. I'm sorry, when there is constant bile coming from the likes of Donald Trump and Fox News and Alex Jones and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of that, we know statistically you can't predict exactly what will happen and when, but you can predict that more terrorist acts will happen because of what
Right.
they've said. And this is predictable. And but in the end, this guy's another one who was a moron caught within what 12 hours, 24 hours,
Right.
right away. But B, he also was somebody who never should have gotten there to begin with, because he had misdemeanor assault charges against him. I
Hmm.
think theft, forgery. We choose not to pay attention the way we didn't pay attention to those two guys, two or three, whatever they were. We're like, yeah, can you teach me how to fly? I don't want to learn how to land a plane or take
Right.
off a plane. Just how to, and because we're not paying attention to all of this
Well,
stuff. Because again, most
okay,
of
I
these
would
people
argue.
are too stupid.
Okay, I will I will agree with you, but I will put an addendum on that. That one of the ways it materially works is like if it was just one side of the ledger, we wouldn't have this problem necessarily, because you'd have the other side of the ledger, the Democrats, or let's say inverse, the Republicans, pushing back on it so hard that you'd go, all right, somebody's paying attention. I can't just let this slide. Let's take a second look. Because at the very least, I'm going to catch hell from these
Right.
guys, or I'm going to lose my election or whatever. And that's where Trump, and I'm going to show you some poll numbers in a minute that reflect that that's their Achilles heel right now, is that they just don't think anybody's making them take a second look until it's too late. But in the case of a lot of
So you're
these,
talking about
like,
Republicans in when you say they, you're talking about Republicans in Congress?
I'm talking about like Trump's uh, circle around him, his ever more isolating circle, not recognizing the reaction by the public or the public's true sentiment until after they've done something stupid, and then they keep trying to shove the toothpaste
Well,
back in the
and
tube,
they keep
and like a
compounding it.
fucking house
Yeah.
cat that fell off a countertop, going, I meant to do that, right? But the on our side of things, in an attempt, one of the big storylines for a long time was the overcapacity of American jails. We incarcerate more people than anybody. Know that was a talking point, that it was on our side of the aisle for a very long time, and that it was unfairly biased in a bunch of areas, mostly because most people don't know just how many white people are in jail in this country. The majority of people in jail are white. Like there's an overrepresentation in the percentage, but even then, that's
Yes,
still a
it's not
small number of
right, it's
humans. Right.
right. Well, really,
It's still,
again, it's the nonviolent drug offenses and stuff that made it
well, it's
over.
the problem, right?
I mean,
And and those are jails. There was also a difference between almost no one is in jail, is in prison for a nonviolent drug offense. A lot of people are in jail for it. And that
right, they're not in
distinction is lost
supermax,
on a
like,
lot of people.
prisons and shit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or federal or state prison, the
Right.
penitentiary for a long stretch versus 3 to 9 months to 90 days or whatever on a rotating basis. There's a bunch of people, but they're out in 9 months, and another person kind of comes in for a generally close
No,
offense,
you're right.
keeping the number static, but it's a different human. But the one thing
The
I wanted
problem
to
is we've
point out,
screwed your
yeah,
record up at that point so that it's harder to get a job and you're more likely to do the same thing again because we've
yeah, no
now
question.
made you an
Well, now
outcast in
I think
society.
we ultimately found a good solution to that, which was personal use drugs. Have kept to a very low level. The unfortunate thing is it's also led to a lot more deaths in that very same community. The very people that might have been in jail for 90 days are now dead from a fentanyl overdose or whatever. Like, the death rate went
Well,
up. So
fentanyl, right? I
it's
mean, not to say we still have problems to solve, but I will sit here forever and say again, I always argue, and I know you're with me on this for people to
yeah,
just attack the Democrats and like there are some corporate Democrats who are terrible. There are some people in the party who suck, and yet overall. They're the
yeah,
ones when they are in power, as we saw under Joe Biden. You're getting your CHIPS Act, you're getting your Infrastructure Act,
right.
you're getting gun safety
Real
legislation passed.
governance.
You're getting like yes, they're governing and trying to make things better. And if they didn't have a so-called partner on the other side that has no interest in governing, is all about power and does everything they can to undermine everything so that everything is a fight, which is why when
Hmm.
you're talking about fentanyl and some of these other things is, you get to a place where like, we're not going to arrest people anymore for, let's say, smoking pot. Okay,
Right.
whatever. But now then something else pops up. You're talking about fentanyl now, and we can't
Yeah.
handle it in the way we should because we don't have a partner on the other that will show up in good faith and do that. We have people looking for an issue. Oh, the Mexicans are sending in fentanyl, and that's all they're
Right.
doing. Like they're
Well,
not actually trying to solve the problem.
it's a tool that they can use. The point I'm trying to make is that there was a there's a slippery slope to how we viewed just incarceration almost in a blanket sense. Like, even when California tried to lower its the people in jail by a percentage, and viewed it that way, became so roughshod because you're going to let people out who should stay in jail if that is your goal, because you're going to look at their primary arrest and not look at, well,
Well,
they're in jail for this right now, but this is after the only reason the judge sent them to jail for this right now, which might seem like a lower level charge, is because they have a history of horrible domestic violence stuff that they just went to jail for, and then they finally went to the penitentiary because the judge
or
had
they
had
made
enough.
deals. I mean, we
Yeah,
find this again and again. They don't get
and
when you come at that
I
with like
had
a we're going to cut it
yeah,
by 1%. That's the Doge way of doing it. The
right,
way
but
you
that's
the way
so
you the way you do it
the
is
point
you
I was
come
trying
in
to
and you
make
say,
is, yeah.
yeah, okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry.
The point I'm trying to make, and hi, Tara, we see you in the background. Give me 1 second and I'll bring you in. That What happens in those situations is you look at the charge they're in jail for and go, that doesn't seem fair, on a line of like 8 people who are just thrown in jail, first charge. That's terrible if they're in jail, but that ultimately they've been let out dozens of times. And this guy who threw this firebomb situation, a lot of these people, and I would argue, if you started putting people in jail for obvious domestic violence for lengths of time, get like real time for spousal abuse, you would see a lot fewer of these assholes walking
Oh my
around.
God.
'Cause
I mean, Hal, I've been ringing that bell forever just because of the fact,
Yes.
again, you can't work on the issue of guns. You just can't the way in the manner in which I did, where people don't know, like I helped, early on Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which became every town, created their digital PR department, and, for 5 years was
Yeah.
heavily steeped in that. And what I'm telling you is the correlation, whether it's mass shooters or people that end up gunning down their family or people that
Yeah.
end up in road rage incidents shooting people, the correlation of those who have committed domestic violence of either
Yep.
against spouse, children, whatever before that is as close to 1-to-1 as you can get. And if we
Right.
took those cases, like this guy, I think he's got misdemeanor
Mhm.
assault. I bet it's domestic assault, in his
Yep.
past. If we took that shit seriously and made it a more serious crime, as it should be, because you are violently attacking somebody, just because you
Yes.
may not
Men
succeed
who attack
doesn't mean you
women
should.
and children will
Yes, you shouldn't get off of
have
that. Yeah.
no problem extrapolating that out to other more violent acts at a certain point.
Yes.
Because if that's your baseline, you're kind of a monster. Now, they
You are.
also
It'd be the most
can
preventative measure we could take, doing
right,
that.
and you could rehab them better because those are also the guys that you can intervene with, and they will snap back once they haven't crossed a bigger line, because
Yep.
anger management, psychology, those kind of things can help bring that back. Not with everybody, and certainly not if alcohol is involved. 60% of the people are in jail for a violent crime. Alcohol was directly involved in that crime. Since we're not going to outlaw alcohol, there should be, I think one of the best things this country could ever do is have a alcohol metabolizing serum that you get an injection of, that where you drink and you can't get drunk. If we invented something like that,
Or a
violent crime.
breathalyzer in every bar where you have to take it at a specific point and see where you are.
Yeah, but everybody would work around that. I literally mean it would have to be on the like doctor level, almost like they give that like sterilizing or injections to like pedophiles and sex offenders where they can't get an erection anymore. Like there's a level of that with violent people who get violent
No,
when they drink.
I agree.
If you could make it
Yeah.
so that they get to metabolize alcohol and not get drunk at all, they just can't. You could drink, sit there all night and drink
Right.
like Superman. And
that
just,
is
they
amazing. I
don't-
mean, that's amazing technology. I think we should utilize that. But I even think for those who've committed no offenses before, part of the regime we put in place that brought down traffic fatalities since the 70s
Yes.
by about 60-70%. One of those
Was
was
DUI
holding
stops.
bartenders who
And
kept,
yes.
the stops, and bartenders who kept serving people that were going to drive,
Right.
who clearly are out of their skulls. Well, if we applied that more generally and said, we don't care if you're going to drive, and I know there's somewhat of a responsibility on bartenders for that too, but they don't really ever enforce that one, which is when
Right.
somebody gets to a point where they're clearly not in control of themselves, stop serving them. Before that,
Yeah.
stop serving them, because that is
Yeah.
when they're most likely to get into a fight or that kind of a situation.
Can I, if you don't mind, I know we're like overtime with him, and Tara's waiting in the background. I want to do
You can
this
kick
real
me
quick
out
I
if you
can.
need to.
No, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to bring you guys both in. Look at this.
Hi, Tara.
And I get to have,
I can see you.
Hi, I'm on my
Look
new
at that.
setup here. How do
I
I look?
know.
How do I
How are you?
sound?
You
gotta
sound
center me
great.
a little bit better.
I am. I'm working on
Yeah?
it.
Gonna
Yeah.
do a little AMSR this morning. How's everyone doing?
Look out.
Maybe I
What's
should-
happening, people?
maybe-
All right.
Wait, are you doing your NPR voice?
Maybe I am. Welcome
Hi,
to
this is
Yeah.
Jack
the
Turner, and I'm
delicious
here,
dish.
and I saw something terrible this morning. And okay, go ahead.
Everybody
Right.
loves my sweaty balls. Okay.
Let's go with the sweaty balls one.
Yes, let's.
That was
Delicious dish.
You can't go wrong. So,
No,
welcome.
no
We're just,
extreme close-ups. No extreme
I didn't do
close-ups.
extreme close-up. I just centered you, and that's what it takes. I have to zoom in a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, here, I'll back out
All
a little
right.
bit.
But
I
yeah,
got
no,
it,
I have my official podcasting setup has been completed. I have the webcam.
It's such a yay!
I
Look
have
at
the
that.
All right.
proper
So-
microphone. Thank you to my partner in crime, Tara Devlin, who was like, "You need an arm for a microphone, and you need a microphone, and you need a this, and you need a
Mhm.
that, and you need a this." And then 2 seconds later, they're there on my
A
doorstep.
package. Right.
See, you need people. You're like
Boom.
me, clearly, because that's what
Boom.
happened with this thing. Is I kept
Yeah.
using like a crappy mic, and friends of mine were like, "Stop this shit."
Eventually-
Dude.
And Yeah.
Ron and Casey were like, and George were like, can you just get your proper shit together so we can record promos and get you on other shows already? Let's go.
So
So
I want
yeah,
to before
I'm a
before
grown up
we
now.
remind everybody that and Cliff, you're on every day, every 5 days a week, or 6 days a week, or 7 days a week. What's the current schedule? Because you've been out for a
Oh,
bit and you
are you
were
talking about
all over.
the live streaming?
Yes.
It's a lot less than that. Because I write for Substack pretty much every day because I think my Substack after that 12-hour live stream thing just went crazy and blew up, and we've got about nearly 600,000 subscribers,
Great.
which is kind of insane. And so I decided
Hello. I want
Mhm.
so
600,000
Wow.
subscribers. Jesus.
well, let's have you on and have both of you on.
Yeah.
So I've been concentrating on that a lot. So what I do is I do a regular live stream on YouTube, streaming out all that stuff on Wednesday. Substack,
Okay.
because of that, gave me a show. So they actually created art for and put money behind, and called
Sweet.
Amped Up with Cliff Schechter, Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So you should check
Excellent.
into that, please. And then otherwise, I'm writing stuff pretty much
Every day.
every day. And I will
Right.
add back to my live stream schedule. My Tuesday one, I've temporarily let someone fill in for me just because the Substack thing is going so well. And I'm so overwhelmed with it, but in a good way.
Well,
Like,
and
it's,
you do regular videos as well, like like basically
yes,
shorts in there as well, so people will catch
I do
those.
shorts
Not
and
just
like 5 to 8 minute videos at my YouTube channel, and I put them up at Substack also. So blueamp.co is the place
Mhm.
to find my Substack. Please go subscribe. We got a new one out today that I just sent out right before the show. And then Cliffs_edge is the YouTube,
Yeah.
youtube.com @Cliffs_edge. And there, we're at about 116,000 subscribers. We're doing well. It's not quite
Yeah.
the Substack, but we're growing. Growing is
Yeah.
good.
Yes, it is. Thanks for coming on, and we're so glad to have you back. And I look forward to talking to you again about this things. And on the way out the door, before we bring in Tara, I want to get your both your thoughts, kind of at the same time, about the shift in polling that is happening with Donald Trump, specifically, if I may. And I got to move Tara around because she's over here now. There we go, and I'll shrink you down. Is This is Rasmussen that is really
Oh my
me-
God.
uh,
Means they've
yeah.
already added 10 points in his favor when you get here.
Right. Donald Trump's approval rating falls to new low with Republican pollster. This is an article from Newsweek, but it relates to this Rasmussen thing. According to a recent survey with Neapolitan and RMG, Trump's approval rating sits at 49%, while 48% disapprove. This is a fucking totally packed, because everybody else you look at says he's at 52 minimum disapproval, and I, when you start talking about his handling of the economy, he's getting into the 60s now. Poll
Right. And he
surveyed
has to be
3,000.
overall.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Al.
Yeah, I just want to finish this part of it. So the poll conducted by them put Trump's in March, had him at +4. In early March, it was +10. This is where this is an ass-kissing Trump poll from Rasmussen. And by the way,
Right.
Trump looks like shit. And I would argue he looks like a colon polyp. We'll talk about that a little bit with Tara later, I have no
Yeah,
doubt.
that's where they're checking for those. I think.
Oh, he's got to
Was
go
it-
under a.
Is it
he's
Elon
gotta-
Musk who has to do it, or I don't know. But,
Well, I think JD Vance is going to be president because they have to move his head out of the way anyways to get to him. So,
Oh, right. But they have to
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of like they have a lever to bring his tongue back in before they go and they
When-
and
But
they do
Rasmussen's
the
giving him a
colonoscopy.
+1, which is the lowest they could possibly give him. And there is no fucking way, short of him dick slapping Rasmussen himself, that they're going to give him underwater on any of these things. That's terrible
Right.
for Trump.
I mean, I used to work in polling, and how I got my start in messaging was some of that stuff. I would say, I mean, right away, you all already know Rasmussen is hilarious, right?
Yeah.
So my guess is that's off by at least 5 points. If we're being realistic, I think that was their historic average that they try to inflate by. Trump may, in fact, be in the low 40s. Obviously, we all just lose our minds because he should be in the 20s, but that's due to a lot of disinformation and other crap and all the other stuff.
There's a 36% floor of people who don't dare say it, even if they don't like what he's doing. They're never going to admit to it.
Right.
In the same way that, with, Bush during the Iraq War, where people just know
Right.
we're at war, the brown people are
Right.
coming. I don't want to hear anything bad, right?
Sadly, in most democracies, there's like a 33% floor for
Yeah.
like fascists can get not floor, but they can get up to that anyhow. And then you throw in our unique problems, electoral college and media that does it, corporate media, whatever. What I would say to you is it means he is falling precipitously. I'd love to see the internals there because my guess is he's falling among some key MAGA groups who don't like it
And
that I don't know,
independents.
they've been fired and their family members have been deported and all the other things that they all the FAFO hitting them,
Mhm.
and it's only in a downward trajectory. It's only going to get worse because sadly, the economy. I don't want the economy to go into recession. It's the most boneheaded, self-inflicted recession of all time, but it's going to happen because he's going to keep being an idiot. And markets need stability, and they also need people who work. And we just had the third worst month in terms of job losses, 80% of which were caused by Doge. So they were self-inflicted too. So we
And
were
and we
literally
haven't even reached the supply shock aspect of people having to let people go because they're not getting these big tech exemptions from these tariffs. So they're just going to have to lay off staff. As soon as they run out of
Yep.
current stock, they're just going to have to start firing people. And
we
that's
haven't had all the bankruptcies yet of farms in Nebraska and Idaho and places who have no workers anymore because they've either deported them or the ones who've seen the others deported have gone into hiding because they don't want to get deported, so nobody's showing up. When all that
Mhm.
triggers in, like he's going to be in the low
It's
40s to
dominoes.
the high 30s is where his
Yeah.
approval rating is gonna land.
Right. Thanks for being on, Cliff. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to bring Tara in and have her
Yep.
take on colon polyps and the idea that, the only person with a worse job than J.D. Vance right now is Trump's doctors at Walter Reed. I feel like we all should send them flowers and steel wool for their eyeballs. But
And
we will,
something to make that
everybody,
place smell better, like maybe some
woof.
spray. I don't
Oh my
know.
God. There was not enough potpourri in the world, my friend. They could turduck him with potpourri and Lysol like cleansing pads, and it still wouldn't do it. It just it would all just
Just
smell like
delouse him, like Austin Powers
40-year-old
kind of thing.
fish delights. Anyways, you're awesome. We'll talk to you later on, and we will follow you on Substack. And hopefully, I look forward to you being back on the show next Monday if you're available with your crazy schedule. And we will keep doing this. I'll join you on yours
Awesome.
anytime you want. I'm sure Tara will now that she's got her totally pro setup, which is fabulous.
Totally pro.
Oh,
I am a
I
total
don't know. We
pro
may be
now.
looking at this week with both of you. So
I think
I
it's a
don't
great
know.
idea.
I don't know. I also have a busy schedule, Cliff. So we'll
Oh,
just
look at that.
see.
I know.
We'll do
I know.
that.
I'm not. I don't ever presuppose. That's why I said maybe.
All right, goddamn
I
it.
don't
I
ever
have the
presuppose.
busiest schedule of
Bye.
anybody here.
Bye.
It-
Okay,
But yeah.
let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
How
All
has
right, I'm
the
gonna
schedule?
Yes, I'll
Bye,
talk to you later.
guys.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
There we go.
I would
All
just
right.
while you're doing this, I would like to tell the kids in the chat that I am blocked on Twitter by both Trump and the Rasmussen poll account.
Aw, of course you are.
Of course I am. And Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is one of my most recent blocks, along with brother of Andrew, Tristan Tate. Those are my two
all right.
most recent big blocks over.
Congratulations.
Thank you. They were earned. They were well earned, and didn't really take much effort on my part because they're so fragile. The Tates are insta blockers, so
Mhm.
really it only takes one. And with Lutnick, I think it took me all of three tweets calling him a traitorous
Mhm.
capo. Yeah, I think that's all it took.
Capo's a rough, yeah.
It's
For
pretty
those that
good.
don't know, that's
It had
the term for Jews who worked in the camps and corralled other Jews. So that's a
Correctamundo also would
yeah.
and I do refer to Stephen Miller as a capo Nosferatu because
Sure.
he's both things. And that guy that tried to blow up Josh Shapiro looks exactly like Stephen Miller if Stephen Miller forego eating babies and just ate meth instead. That's
Sure.
exactly what
Yeah.
it looks like. Like
He's met Stephen Miller.
if you
Yeah.
did a side by side of Stephen Miller and the guy who tried to set Josh Shapiro's family on fire because he hates Jews, if you did
Mhm.
that, it would be like, well, what's the difference? Except maybe the chin pubes are really the only difference. And I'm
Mhm.
in the process of writing a blog about this for the Political Voices Network Substack, which I hope everyone will sign up for, along with mine and yours and everybody else's
Mhm.
Substacks. But yeah, no, the anti-Semitism is a lot right now,
Yeah.
and as a Jewish American, Saturday was the first night of Passover, and I don't believe it's a coincidence
No.
that the guy in Pennsylvania decided to try to set his house on fire on the first Seder the night of the first Seder. And that's usually the first night of Passover is like the biggest deal. And you do
Yeah.
if you're really into it, you do the whole Seder, which takes hours. You have a Haggadah,
Yeah.
which is the little book, and it tells the story of Passover, and everyone goes around the table and they read their parts. And then halfway through, you have the festive meal. And then after the meal, you're supposed to go back and do like the back nine version of the Haggadah. My family never did that when I was growing up. It was like, hit the 4 questions, do the plagues, get to the festive meal, we're done. But Josh Shapiro, as governor, he had invited guests. He had his young children, his wife, the whole family is there. They had the Seder plate set up. They had a whole thing. And if you've seen the photos, it's just devastating, the fire. And it's just fortunate that none of them died. And I'm glad they took the guy alive in custody. The guy broke into the South Wing. He evaded the guards on the grounds and slipped over the wall. It was like 7-foot high iron fence. Had beer bottles full of gasoline. And that did that. And you cannot say that MAGA terrorism isn't real. You cannot. I mean, I'm right. The thing that my Substack, I'm just calling it MAGA is the death
This is
cult
the dude, by the way.
terrorists. Look at him.
That's
Look at him.
who she's talking about. Yeah.
They always look like an old man's nutsack. They always do.
You know what's funny? This guy.
But that's very Stephen Miller adjacent.
Yeah. Well, it's very. Well, I think it's kind of awkward that he probably thinks people mistook him for being Jewish by his look for a long time is the idea, and hated it or grinded against it. And that was a thing. And maybe that added to it. Not that that's an excuse, but that it's certainly a picture of a broken fucking brain to some degree.
Right.
But one of the reasons they didn't catch him coming there and why he got away with it is he fucking walked. He didn't drive there. He didn't park nearby where there's car surveillance, which is how they do it. He walked. He just walked. And it's fucking Pennsylvania. And, there's a reason they call parts of that state Pennsyltucky. It's a very wooded kind of an area. And you watch, as soon as they get that stuff fixed, what you're going to see is infrared sensors put everywhere so you can detect warm bodies, which they should have had already at any governor's mansion. It's fucking 2025. But now they definitely will. And this guy also, I want to say he had due to a medical event not connected to his incident arrest, Balmer was transported to an area hospital where he's currently receiving treatment for something, smoke inhalation. I don't know, but
good. I hope it hurts.
Or he had a panic attack. Like, it's so fucked up. But
good.
Anyways, he allegedly, and this is interesting because this ties him in with a bunch of these other crimes that are.
He wanted to beat him with a hammer, kind of like Paul Pelosi.
Yeah, right. That's become a trendy way of viewing how you're going to deal with Democrats you don't like in these fucking weirdo circles.
Right. Just take a hammer to him. Especially the Jewish ones are extra fragile, so it really doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I'm just so infuriating, and I'm using my mommy says it's time to leave the store voice because I'm furious. And we've watched anti-Semitism just increase exponentially during the MAGA cult years. With them really, the Charlottesville thing really should have woken up more Americans at that point, because even though they were chanting Jews will not replace us, but what they were really saying is we're replacing Jews. We are going to replace the Jews. That's always been their plan. From Hitler's final solution to what Trump is doing now, it's an evolution of trying to eradicate like 2% of the global population. Jews do not make up a majority anywhere except in Israel. So it's just, and American Jews are a very small percentage of the American population. And I think one of the smaller groups are like trans women, or just like there are very few groups that are smaller than American Jews. But yet we're the cause of the ills of all of the world and we control everything. No, we don't. No, we do not. And I'll keep saying it because I have never received a check from George Soros ever. And allegedly he paid all of us to march last on the 5th. And so if George Soros really put $5 trillion into the American economy, wouldn't that be wonderful if that were true? It's not true. It's not true. We don't have to be paid to do the right thing. And once again, reiterate, if Jews controlled both the media and the banks all over the world, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as much as I enjoy your company, Hal. I would be running shit. I would
Mhm.
be running shit. I
Right.
wouldn't be begging people to buy my book or sign up for my Substack because I wouldn't need your $10
Yeah.
a month, even though I desperately need your $10 a month right now. It's it's frustrating when these tropes are the ones that last. And
Well,
when they
yeah.
perpetuate this, but then they come back with, "Well, Donald Trump's daughter converted to Judaism and his son-in-law is Jewish, and these people." Yeah, you know why Donald Trump likes Jews around him? Because 'Cause they're accountants.
He
He has Jewish
thinks, yeah.
accountants, and they'll
He
take the
well, he
fall for him like Weisselberg, but that
Well,
he's not
even
gonna
beyond that,
he's not
like
gonna
he'd never believed it. This is maybe it's left over from Roy Cohn or just his father's anti-Semitism, but the idea is that like Jews are good for one thing, counting money. And he
correct.
had this thing in the 80s where he went to one Mazars or one of the big accounting firms before he went to Mazars because Mazars wouldn't put up with that. I think was what happened. But he went to this one and there were some black people working there, and he was like, I don't want any black people working on my books. I want the people with the small hats, and he meant
That's right.
Jews,
He
people with the
meant
small
us.
hats.
That's
Which, by
correct.
the way,
That's
the Shapiro thing was kind of has kind of swamped another story about, you know, the Nikita Kassup story in Wisconsin, the kid in Wisconsin who killed his parents, 17 years
I'd
old,
heard about it, but I haven't
murdered his
gotten all of
parents
the details.
because he's a white supremacist and he's part of a neo-Nazi group. The reason he was caught, besides the fact that he was blatant online about this kind of shit and the killing of his parents, but he was doing this, he had a plot to kill Trump for the very reason that you said that he believes that because that he was going to kill Trump and Vance or Trump and Melania at different times. Like he was weird about it, but it was because he believed Trump is being controlled by Jews. His support of Israel, he believes not only the Jews control the money system, but they control Trump as well, and he's got to go because. Uh, so
I'm
I think it wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't going to kill Vance
Ooh, that's
because Vance
crazy.
isn't controlled by Jews the way
No,
Trump
he's
is.
controlled by Nazis. He's controlled by
Right.
Nazi Peter Thiel.
Well, that's
That's
not
who he's
control. That's just
controlled by.
alignment as far as this kid was concerned. He was arrested in March, charged with 2 charges of first degree murder. Hold on, I'll see if I can bring this up and show you.
So, he
This
thought his
this kid.
parents were Jewish sympathizers or something and
No,
didn't want
he just had he
what
killed
was
them
the deal?
effectively for money. I would guess. Yeah, he alleged, the FBI reviewed documents allegedly written, which calls for the assassination of Trump and the start of a revolution to save the white race, according to federal documents. The writing show pictures of Hitler, Hitler, hail, the white race, hail, victory, just blah, blah, blah. He was in touch with other parties with his plan to kill the president or overthrow the government of the United States, and he paid for, at least in part, a drone explosives to be used as weapons of mass destruction to commit the attack. The theory was he, I guess, killed his parents to pay for it. So they wouldn't stop him. He wanted to obtain the financial means and autonomy necessary to kill Trump and overthrow the U.S. government. And he wanted to overthrow Trump because Trump is controlled by Netanyahu and Jared Kushner, and
Yeah, solid. That's solid. Sure. Just cool.
they're turning the Shiksas Jewish by Ivanka. Like this is a sticking
That's right.
point with these
That's right.
fuckers.
We're
And
dirtying your bloodstream. We're dirtying your bloodline. You don't want your family tree to have
right.
branches. Got it. Okay.
He killed his parents,
It's
hid him in the house, and then he stole 10 grand, misappropriated their ID to obtain money. So he used their credit cards and their documents to take money out of the bank. Um,
17.
17
17
years
years
old,
old.
and he wants to,
Jeez.
yeah, and he was plotting to kill Trump because Trump is owned by the Jews. Um,
Mm,
and here's
I
the
can
thing.
tell you categorically he is not.
Well, that's the thing. He and Netanyahu are very close and what have you, but and people can read into the Israeli government or the right wingers in the Israeli government, the alignment with this and blah blah blah. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. The point of this is that that kind of ideology always comes back to bite you in the ass. One of the things that was very evident in the communist Cuban Revolution and in South America when the communists would come in, the first people they killed were the people most aligned with them because those are the people who wouldn't put up with the corruption or the impurity if they decided the actual people putting the revolution in charge, in place went, well, we play a little fast. I mean, it's us. We don't have to be completely communist. You know what I mean? We get to have better houses than these assholes. Once that
Sure.
starts, it's the most faithful to the ideology that you can't trust. They're the ones that will go, wait a second, we are pure in this revolution. Those people have to die first. They're the first up against the wall in any communist revolution. Historically, there's a similar thing that's happening in the mentality of MAGA, which goes to that whole thing with Alex Jones last year before Trump was shot at. And that kid, one of the reasons I think the details about this shit has not come out because a lot of this kid's information points back to Alex Jones's saying, look, if somebody were to assassinate Trump, and I don't want this to happen, but if it was to happen, we would be in a position where we could put somebody in who does everything he does. It would be a sympathetic electorate, whoever that was, whether it was, whoever it wasn't Vance at the time. They were talking about other possible VPs for him. If that person would immediately become the face of MAGA, and the sympathy of the United States would be behind them, they'd be able to get so much more done without all the baggage of Trump. And that's exactly what the fucking shooter in Butler was allegedly concerned with. And that's one of the reasons why it just went fucking like it was like everything was redacted about that motherfucker, because that's the chain of thought. Like, you can't stop a revolution like that from biting you in the ass. You set these kind of
Right.
awful forces in place, it's psychotic, it's murderous, and it never stops. They will
Well,
never
and
be satisfied.
no, and what's weird still, all of this time later, we never got the real story from Butler. We don't know anything about that kid's family. Like, no parents came out and spoke to the world saying, "Our son was this, and then he became radicalized." That didn't happen.
Mhm.
We never got a real medical report from a real
Right.
doctor that treated Trump there, because nothing happened to Trump because he wasn't shot. He was shot at. And
Mhm.
two innocent people died because in the crowd trying to save people, and then the shooter was, taken out. But we don't know anything except
Right.
maybe he was in a BlackRock video, or maybe he was recruited and radicalized, but we don't know. And we don't know anything about his upbringing or anything like that. But what always got, like, nobody from the hospital where Trump was allegedly treated ever held a press conference, and nobody demanded it either, which, it's
Yeah.
all goes to this hinky bullshit. And then we get this new report from this Navy doctor who's like, and he's won many golf tournaments as well. That has nothing to do with anything. And his health is not healthy. He's not a healthy
No.
person.
No.
And it's that reporter from Mike Pillow's news network, who was literally planted in the press room so that she and Caroline could fangirl over Trump together. He just looks healthier than ever before, doesn't he? Well, he sure does. It's like, no, he doesn't, and he
No.
doesn't win tournaments. It's a given that
No.
he's gonna be getting his little
I mean,
trophy and his birthday crown. It's just like, it's so fucking frustrating. Like, you can't, I mean, a person who had never seen him before, if you found a person on this planet who had no idea who he was, never seen a photo, and you showed a photo of him from this weekend, they'd be like, "Who's that dying sundowning
yeah.
ghost of a slip?"
Yeah, you'd go, you should, it's time to make a will. That I mean, right
Good
now,
God, like, what? Roll
I
him
think right
away,
now
like,
they're in
why?
between this situation where it's like you're like Ozempic or oncology, like one
Both,
something.
or both.
Right. Well, with
I mean,
him,
who knows?
it's going to
It's,
happen all at once because he's in such shit shape. But he's got, and by the way, again, I don't wish this on anyone. If you get your colon checked, folks, but the
I
irony,
did this year. I did
yeah,
on January 6th. My colonoscopy this year was on January 6th. I thought that
oh,
was perfect, because that was
yeah,
the day I wouldn't have to pay attention to things for a little while, and I'm delighted to
sure,
tell you that I got a proper colonoscopy from a real doctor,
hmm,
and a clean bill of health, 1 polyp, also benign, and I don't have to go back for 5 years, which is wonderful. Maybe Trump and I can get an appointment together. Oh, wait, he probably won't be able to make his appointment in 2029. We'll
right.
see. We'll see. We'll just see what happens. I don't know, but it's just, I don't wanna think
Also,
about that. And what sort of punishment do you have to, like, how terrible of a human being do you have to be where someone says to you, "You'll be administering the colonoscopy for Donald Trump this year." Like, you pulled the shortest of the shortest straws if you're
or you're like,
administering
you're the
his
doctor, like,
colonoscopy.
I got this. Like,
Oh,
and
I
then
wanna get in there. I'm gonna get every last Big Mac out of his colon.
right.
I'm gonna be the one
Like,
that
I got this
harvests
covered.
it.
All right. So, anybody, you might want to stand back, right? Like this, like there's some doctor, Walter Reed, who like nudges people every time Trump can't stand still for 2 minutes.
Right? And there's a
I'm kidding. That's
giant,
not going to happen.
giant
They're
medical
professionals.
waste
Simmer down. It's a
bucket.
joke. And I don't wish that on anybody. But here's what I'll say, though. So, Barbarella, Barbarella,
Barbabella, right?
cited amongst
Barbabella.
Barbabella, the doctor of the
Barbabella
president. Yes.
Sniper.
Barbabella said Trump weighs 224 pounds, which he's gained weight.
Bullshit.
Wait, he's gained weight while he's gotten skinnier. He hasn't put on muscle mass, which means he was close to 300 before, and they were just lying
For
their
sure.
fucking ass off. And I believe this number. I believe 224, even because he looks like he's wasting away, and he's still at 6'3". Like my dad is 6'2" and in better shape than Trump, even though he has to do dialysis. And my dad weighs about 200 pounds. Like, and he can't, he doesn't have Walter Reed taking care of him. So he doesn't have, every possible, intervention going on 24/7 at night. Because I have no doubt Trump's got an IV in his arm almost every day. Like
Oh, I don't
either
doubt it. I bet he's
they
got a
are.
banana bag on him every night. Every
And
night
they have
before bed, they
he's got that bruise
probably
on the back of his hand all the time whenever they miss the vein. And they probably have found a way to do it because he wears long sleeves all the time. They just do it into
all
the arm
except
right
when he's
here.
golfing.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And
So,
then
yeah, they do
that's when he has
they do
makeup
it
on
where
his
people
hands. Remember
can't
when he
see
had
it.
makeup on the back of his hands? Right? To cover it? Because the morning it was
Nothing
all
about
like
him is
deep
real.
purple. So
Yeah.
224, resting heart rate of 62 beats per minute. That's not necessarily good. It's definitely elevated. And also, I believe that's a lie. I think they lowered it, doing like,
Of
look, it'll
course.
affect the
Mhm.
markets if we put 74. So make it
Yeah.
62. We'll call it even. We'll do the work on it.
Right. Right. He's
And then they
just so
put he has
healthy.
scarring on his ear from the gunshot. Okay, fuck you. No, he
Bullshit, he
doesn't.
does. No, he doesn't. Doesn't have any scarring, and you can even see for yourself because when he puts on his diaper makeup, he always forgets to do his ears. And so his ears are these like bright pink piggy ears while the rest of his
Yeah,
face is shit brown. And there are multiple photographs of him since that happened where his ear is not malformed in any way. There's no piece missing. And by the way, if somebody shot your ear with an AR-15, you would no longer have an ear. They would have
you'd
to
be
build
deaf.
you a new ear. They would have
Right.
to create you one in a lab and then attach it to your head again because it's just all it's
But if your
like,
ear was
you don't
nicked by a
necessarily
piece of
need
glass
it,
from a
but it's nice to
teleprompter,
have. Anything, anything, anything. There would be something visible, a scar, a
mhm,
line, a
right.
something. He got nothing because nobody shot his body. It
Let's
was
see if
all
I can,
staged and fake, and he had those blood capsules.
right.
He had those blood capsules when when you do a fight in a movie and someone's like, "Pow!" and it's like, "Oh," and then you bite the blood thing and it makes it look like they punched you in the mouth. It's all fake. Everything about him is
Right.
fake. They might as well just bring the dog and the pony wherever they go, or the organ grinder and the monkey, because it's all about putting on a
There's a
show
little dot and a
for his
divot right
base.
there on my head, and I don't know if you can see it very well right there. Like right there. It's pretty small. If you meet me in
A
person,
little
you
bit.
want to see it. It looks different than, like a former Zit or something like that. But I was stabbed in the head with a pencil in a fight in
Oh my gosh.
in school, and the pencil went
Mm.
like the dude went like that, and I turned my head, and it went up and in like that,
Dude,
and it
just stop, stop,
broke.
stop, stop. I'm so bad with stabby stuff that I cannot. I
Oh, it
cannot.
gets
Oh
better.
god. Oh,
Anyways, it
no,
broke
no, no,
off,
no, no. Did it go in your
and
eye? Did it go in your
no,
eye?
no,
Because
no,
eye
no,
stuff is
no,
oogie.
because it just went up under
No?
the skin. It was just stuck there like a fucking splinter, but a
Blah,
big giant
blah.
splinter. Anyways, I I I won the fight. Thank you very much. But I did it with a pencil dangling out of my head, and I think partly is
What
like
a
the kid was
fucking
scared to death that
badass.
he hadn't done it, and I didn't even realize it. I'm like all adrenalized, and I'm like fuck, redneck bullshit, and I've got this.
And it's
I got
like,
a half a
was
pencil
it, like,
sticking out of my head.
wagging?
Yeah, I got half a pencil sticking out of my head, and just all you can see is the bottom of it that broke off, and it's up in here. And so they're like, "Yeah, you got to go to the nurse." And I go to the nurse,
The
and
nurse,
she's like,
not
"Oh
the
my god!"
ER, just
She
go to
calls
the
my
nurse.
mom. Yeah, she called my mom. My mom comes, picks me up, takes me to the doctor, at the hospital where she works. And they pull the pencil out, which was fun. And the lead had broken off. It was like right up in here, the graphite.
Oh,
And so he had to take a piece of tweezers and stick it up in there and pull it out.
just
Yeah,
on my
I'm just doing this
nightmares, just
for
all of
Tara.
my
I'm
nightmares,
just
but
telling this
oh
for you
my
now.
god,
Just
this is
telling you
so
this.
David
It gets
Lynchian, just
better.
stop.
Yeah, and
No!
they managed to get it out. And by the way, I've never felt such excruciating pain in my life because the nerves under there are so sensitive. It was like somebody had just like had parked a car on my head. Like the pressure,
Oh my
it just was like
god, oh
all you
my
got to do is
god.
push on that nerve there, and it feels like your head's being crushed. And
Oh, yeah.
anyways, took it out. I took it like a champ. Didn't my mom was very proud of me because I was very quiet and I didn't move because all they could do was localize it, and it still didn't work. He localized where the cut was, but he didn't nothing they could localize up here because they're not going to stick a fucking needle in the side of my temple. So
And you were
my
how old?
mom, my mom to this day, and the next time my mom is visiting, I'll see if I can remember to have her bring it. But my mom literally has a little pill bottle that says the lead from Hal's head. And it's got the
Oh my
pencil lead that was
god.
taken out of my head in that fight. She had it in her medicine cabinet for years and it's still there. So and if she doesn't bring it with her, she will definitely tell the story and it will match up exactly with what I said. So,
Oh my god. Wait,
but
and wait,
I
how old were
still
you
have,
when this happened?
I was 14.
14, okay.
It's right before I moved up to
I wanted a
Chicago.
frame of reference.
Yeah, it was just right before I moved up to Chicago, and one of the reasons I moved to go live with my dad was because if I'd have stuck around in Kentucky, I'd be A, pumping gas, or
Fine.
I would have killed somebody or been killed by somebody, because that's just how
Right.
my life was going. But when she still got it. She still has it. It's adorable. My mom keeps
It's
everything.
great.
And
Well, I still have all of my son's baby teeth,
point
so
being is that if you ever meet me and you go, oh, look, there's a little gray spot from the
right.
lead still,
Oh, right, right. Oh, so
and a
your
little
point
divot in
being
the
that
skin.
if you
Yeah.
met Trump, you would see no such divot in his ear,
No, you would
akin to the
not.
divot you
And that
see.
was when I
That's
was fucking
I got
14, not 14
there's
months
the
ago.
through line. No,
Or
exactly, 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 and it's all a show and it's all fake, and anybody who still goes back to that and the fact that they fucking replaced Obama's official presidential portrait with a shot from with his little fist up in the air when they were recreating that fake moment is just so petty and pathetic, and just points to what a jealous, overgrown child he
well,
is that he can't leave a previous president's portrait hanging in the White House. He's so envious of how beloved that president was. So
oh,
jealous and small. That is pathetic. And the fact that you have to he hung his mugshot in the Oval Office, and then
mhm.
he replaces Obama's official portrait with his staged faux assassination photo that they use to grift more money because it's on all the merchandise. What a coincidence. And it's
Right.
just, again, when does MAGA realize they have been duped this entire time? I mean, when do
I
they
know.
realize?
I know.
When, you
It's hard to
guys?
say.
Is it when is
So,
it when they try to buy something at
okay,
Walmart and it's now
there's
$75?
this agreed. There's a surface level part of this. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, Tara Dublin has a great book called The Sound of Settling, and you should pick it up
I do.
and go to
Yes, you should.
taradublinrocks.com and you should sign up for her Substack and watch
Yes, you
the
should.
Tara show where
Yes, you
she
should.
and Tara Devlin, not to be
That
confused
is
with
correct.
Dublin,
That's how it
have a
all
show.
started.
It's great.
That's how it all started. By
Tara
the way,
Squared. Look
my
for it.
correct, and that is, tomorrow and Thursday at 2 PM Eastern, 11
That
AM
day.
Pacific time, and also, just wanna put this out there for the kids in the chat, I'm very grateful that you're here and supportive and wonderful. My birthday's a week from Saturday,
All right.
so, hey, you know what I would like?
Kick
I mean,
in.
every year, my annual birthday wish is, of course, for world peace. I still haven't gotten that one. This year, it's world peace and a book deal and being able to pay my rent. So, again, if for my birthday, a week from Saturday, just,
And if
buy
one of
buy
you
me a
is a from a publishing house, all
yeah,
right.
no, that'd be
so
great.
so
That'd be
here's the
great. That'd be awesome.
thing I
But
like to
anyway,
point
let's
out.
do that.
We spend
Yes.
a lot of time talking about what a emotionally weak and psychologically weak and intellectually stupid person that Trump is. And on a surface level, we deal with a lot of that kind of kerfuffle. But then there's some very serious things under the hood, as it were, that uh, his ignorance causes real effects in the real world, and he does not have the mental capacity to understand it except to go, oh, fuck, and then backtrack, which is not what
Correct.
you do in an emergency. It's like an EMT going, running up to you with fucking, like a defibrillator and going, after he shocks you, going, he was choking, right? Like,
Right.
Like, you just fucking killed him. Like, that's the level of ready, fire, aim Trump stuff that's going on. But in this medical report, there were 2 or 3 things that stood out to me. One was, he had they listed a July 2024 colonoscopy that revealed he already had one that revealed a diverticulosis, which is not diverticulitis,
Colitis.
which
Boy,
is an
that's a
ongoing thing.
deep Gen X reference,
Diverticulosis,
by the way.
yeah.
If you get the diverticulitis joke just from the word diverticulitis, you
Oh
hung
yeah.
you hung tough in the early '80s with SNL.
We've got diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis. Do you
So
remember
he's
the
got
name of the
diverticulitis.
characters?
Yes.
Do you
So
remember the
he's got diverticulosis, which
and
I
that
presume
is
means it's
still
more
not good.
acute. Litis
Yes,
means
it
an ongoing
it's
thing.
probably
Losis
worse.
means it's acute, and they don't know if it's going to be ongoing or if it's just a temporary rerouting of shit into one part of his colon that's
Gross.
turning into a balloon in his abdomen because and he's been so out of shape nobody noticed for a long time. And then
His
a
colon
quote.
has multiple off ramps. That's what
Here's
it
the part
is. It's
that's
just like,
a couple things that
you're
stood out. One was his comprehensive neurological examination revealed no abnormalities.
ha! Okay.
Okay, that doesn't mean it like it. It's not abnormal for a person of his age to be forgetful, to get hyperfixated. It is not abnormal at all for somebody of his age to be fucking dizzy and lost and forget why they did things or why they left their keys. That's not abnormal in that situation. Normal is not the fucking standard. Capable and functional is. But what they're using
Right.
here is the word, there are no abnormalities for his
Mhm.
age and his weight and his diet and his lack of exercise. It would be very normal for somebody that eats shit, doesn't exercise, and has never believed in any of those things and is his age to be cognitively aging very poorly. That would be normal.
Right.
So what a
Right.
fucking legal tap dance around that. So the question is an abnormality. We don't think he's a sociopath. We don't think he's going schizophrenic, dummy. He's like, that's the part that bugged me. It stood out very much that they used that phrasing because when they use weasel words, it's just red flags all over the fucking place. And the other one that they pointed out
Right.
was they gave him a colonoscopy last year. He had one last year and he's having another one this soon. And it said at the
That's
time,
bad.
yeah, it is, that he had diverticulosis and a benign polyp. Okay, bullshit. They did not run tests on the polyp in that time period.
They might have. It doesn't take very long for them to test that stuff because they can
I
get your diagnosis to you very quickly.
I
I mean,
like
they
I
did
would
with mine.
my guess is he skipped that part of it or ignored it or made them say it's benign. I don't if you're looking
Oh.
at it again and he's going back in for the removal of them and he's going under anesthesia, which again,
Mhm.
not good at that age. And
No, it can
and
be dangerous, and one of the reasons why they might have him coming back so quickly is he might have not been cleansed enough the first time, and they may not have been able to get up there enough, because
mm,
if you can take into consideration his lack of health, one polyp is very hard to believe. Just one. He should have many because he's that unhealthy, and my guess
mhm,
is that maybe he didn't do the prep entirely because if you don't follow the prep instructions completely, if you think, "Oh, I went big one time, I'm clean." No, you're not. No, you have to do it like this time
mhm,
around. I did 2 days of prep before, and it was
mhm,
disgusting and terrible and awful, and you feel like part of you's just gonna float away forever because there's nothing left inside of you, and maybe your heart and lungs will come out next. But it
mhm.
is if they have rescheduled it that soon,
Yeah.
either something was wrong the first time or he didn't do the prep and they couldn't get up in there deep enough to get everything. And they're making him come back, and someone's going to force him to do the monster prep where he's going to be incapacitated, like even beyond what he normally is. It's
Yeah.
just again, then we're never going to know. We're never going to know the real reason.
Right.
And even if the second colonoscopy doesn't turn out well, they're still not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us anything. So why,
Right.
like, why even tell us he has to go back for one? Like, why would you? I think the only reason they have to tell us is because then they have to temporarily make Vance the president. while
Yeah.
he's
Have you ever
under.
have you ever
That's the
seen
only reason that we have to know
you ever
about it.
seen the movie Ghost Town with Ricky Gervais? It's Tia Leone.
No. Yeah, I
It's a
know
it
of it, but I have not. Is that the one where they have to tell the truth all the time, or
no,
no?
that's the
That's a
inventor of like invention of lies.
that's
Uh
that movie is
but
terrible.
yeah, it is. It's lame. The but the and it's just another one of his anti-religion screeds. He just
Uh-huh.
finds new ways. Like he and Marr just find new ways to be a dick about it. It's just silly. But
Oh my god, we have to
Ghost
talk
Town is
about Bill Maher.
well, Ghost Town is sort of hypocritical in the fact that it's about this guy who can talk to ghosts because he goes into the hospital for a colonoscopy and he finds out the next day that he died on the table and came back and they don't like they don't tell him and he doesn't he's like
Mhm.
did anything happen and they like what a lot of things happened and they like corner him and Kristen Wiig is
A lot of
fucking
things.
fantastic she was the attending physician and when he starts asking she's like can you 1 second about that thing okay and yeah go ahead sorry you were saying or whatever and then as soon as he starts talking this gigantic black dude who's the lawyer for the hospital just barges in and stands right in front of him with a bunch of
Mhm.
paperwork like because
Uh,
they don't want to tell him and he quit claimed it apparently while he was still under anesthesia it's just that part of it the telling of it and the prep for the colonoscopy and the post thing is great because it's
I'm
kind of
sure.
close to the
It's
whole thing and he
comedy gold.
yes
Comedy gold watching
and
someone go through that kind of agony
him
all the time.
drinking the Miralax solution
Oh god.
like he drinks this whole bottle he's got to do 2 whole bottles the day before
Yep,
to
yep.
just get everything through. And it's just
Misery.
and he's like, "Ugh,
It's all of us. That is all of
ugh."
us. And
And
anybody
he
who
does,
has ever had to do it knows this.
yeah. And then he goes, and then at one point he's like, make it, make it, make it. He's just running to the bathroom.
You
Uh,
you cannot be more than 4 steps from your bathroom when you're going through this. You
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
go out,
exactly.
you cannot do anything, you must stay
And so I
home.
think while we hope that Trump dies a healthy old man in prison, after many many years of being able to contemplate his failures in life, the fact that he's having to go through this process, which a lot of people his age and younger have to go through, and it's a good idea to get it done, and like every normal person at this age, and it it, it took some very wonderful people early colon cancer it is right along with pancreatic cancer is the two most problematic ones that adults have
Yep.
right now, in American society anyways, which should tell you a lot about our diet
Yep.
and the
Yep.
diet we've been told is good, but don't get me started. But that on top of that, like he's got to go through this. So the idea that Trump is just somebody is gonna have to walk in, probably the same asshole who hands him those things that he has to sign. Like, today we're signing an executive order that will make your bowels explode. Like he's going to have to walk in with it on one of those little folding writing things, but he's just got 2 bottles of white liquid that
Right,
just,
he holding it up to the press, it's like, "1st bottle of Miralax, 2nd bottle
yeah,
of Miralax."
right. Yeah. And so he's just going to, by the way, can I just say, everybody, and I'm sure everybody in the chat recognizes this, that mic makes your voice sound like Radio Terra, that I'm sure is the
Oh,
exact reason
really?
why you had a career in radio. It sounds fantastic,
Thank
and
you
I'm
so
so
much.
happy.
I'm so happy to hey, friends in the chat, I'll do some AMSR for you. It'll
Simmer.
cost you, but I'll
All
do it.
right.
I'll fucking do it.
Stop it.
Do you want me to eat potato chips and pickles and crushed ice? I'll do that shit. I'm broke. I need money, so I will. I'll do it. You send me
Mhm.
money and I will what? What do you want me to eat on I'll eat food on camera. I'll crunch things. What do you want? Chew gum? Chew and pop my gum? I'll do that. I don't know. Do impressions. Talk to you like this. Say, "Hey, baby,
Whatever.
what's up?
Just
Do you want me to read to you? I'm gonna read
yeah,
you
she's gonna
read
go
you
like crinkle paper and rub like uh sheets of paper together and stuff like that.
rub it.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm rubbing your bottom right now. Doesn't that feel nice?" I'm
um
telling you, it's desperate times. I don't honestly, as a freelancer, I'm not really sure what the future is for people like us
so I think
who don't have a 401k, I'm still
hey,
hoping
if
for
you don't
my
have a
big break.
401k right now, you kind of can't get wiped out over the next couple of months. But it's not a bad idea to start at the bottom, I guess, if he's gonna fucking wreck
Right.
shit.
That's right.
And
Just keep
believe
your
me, a
money
Democrat will
in
come
your
in and
stock.
clean it up again, and the same
No, I know that.
assholes on our
I know that.
side of the aisle will forget that they did all that cleanup, blame them for the difficulty of it. They'll go, why does my scar look this bad? Well, because you fucking gave yourself a major disease and we had to remove
Correct.
it. And
Why is
the
it
scar is not our fault. You know, this guy stabbed you. I sewed it up, and you're mad at me because of the fucking scar, not at the guy who stabbed you. That's what
right,
Democrats deal with. And it's not, they
right,
don't deal with
exactly,
it
that's exactly
from
it.
independents and Republicans. They deal with it from our side, and that shit's got to stop. Don't get me started. So Trump needs to
I mean,
stock
it
up on
does.
soft toilet paper, wet wipes, lotions, creams to ease anal irritation,
That is
reading
correct.
materials,
And
videos,
yeah,
and other ways
that's
to pass the time. A
they
variety
give
of
you a
clear
whole
liquids,
list of things.
water,
Yes.
chicken or beef broth, flavored drink
That's
mix,
right.
lemonade, lime,
Correct.
orange flavors
Yes,
only. And
yes.
that's really for the
Nothing
doctor,
purple or red. Nothing
right?
purple or
Because
red
it'll die.
because
It'll die. You can't tell blood flow. You can't see it
that's
because your
correct.
veins
That's
are
correct.
purple and your blood is red and all that stuff. Frozen ice pops,
Yes,
preferably the smooth kind, not the bomb
clear
pops, because
ones.
when you shove them up in
Get the
there,
clear.
it
Yeah,
yeah
ooh.
get uh, fruit juices without pulp,
You can have tea. You can have tea and coffee. They
yep.
consider those clear beverages. I don't know why, because 'cause they're not.
Soft
But when
drinks, he'll have Diet Coke, a bunch of Diet
you
Coke.
can have pop. I
You
opted
can do
this
you
time
can
around.
do coffee enemas, so I imagine you could do Diet Coke enemas. That'd be hilarious.
That'd be fizzy.
Um,
It would be fizzy. It'd be make your butthole effervescent, which is what doesn't everybody want that? I love that word. Effervescent is such
it
a
is
good
good.
word.
It's good.
I
Yeah.
love that. This time around, I opted for, iced tea as my mix-in
Yeah,
for the
sure.
Miralax. I got myself some Diet Peach Snapple, and I
Mhm.
just it's they have a 64-ounce bottle, which is what you have to drink. You have to drink actually, you have to drink 128 ounces, and so I
Right.
got 2 bottles of those and the 2 Miralaxes, and you put the Miralax in and you shake it and let it sit there, and then I just drank the whole thing, and a straw helps. I won't lie.
Mhm.
It's better to like, you suck it down with a straw, and then you go, you give yourself a minute, you walk around, and also, you don't have to drink it all at one sitting. They give
Yeah,
you a
you can do it over the course of the
2-hour
day.
window.
Yeah, or yeah,
Yeah,
like
actually yeah, in my prep instructions, they gave me a 2-hour window, like, "You drink this between 4 and 6, and then by 6:15, you'll be in the bathroom with your cats looking at you like, 'What is going on?'"
mhm.
So, yeah, no, totally fun and cleansing experience, and what's interesting, people do, enemas and cleanses for their health, even if they're not getting
Yeah,
a colonoscopy,
sure.
and then
Barbara
when you come
Walters,
out
one of
of
my favorite Barbara
yeah.
Walters quotes. Why not just an enema?
Why
She
not?
literally said that.
Because it doesn't get your entire colon and intestinal stuff clean. It has to be everything that could be up in there. It's not just the lower, it's all of it.
I've done
So
colon
basic
hydrotherapy. I've done that after seeing
mm,
LA Story.
wee,
I went and did one of
wee,
those
you're just
things.
flushed. You're just flushed top to tail. You're just
Oh
straight
yeah,
straight
absolutely.
through.
Yeah.
Everybody out, 2 exits, no waiting. Let's
Yeah,
go,
right.
let's go. You don't have to go home if you can't stay here.
Right. Nope,
Bye-bye.
not the way you came in. Out the other
Nope,
way. Right.
nope.
Yeah.
Exit only, exit
Yeah, right.
only.
Yeah.
Exit through the rear
As they
door.
say in
Thank you
the
so much.
Navy, there is no wrong hole. So
Ah. Oh, boy, this is the most I've talked about my butt in a very long time. Anyway,
well,
I
yeah, I
don't
mean,
I
it's a collective
hearing
butt conversation. But what I will say
I've
is here's the point I'm trying to make in this is that all of this is um like normal for people who do this kind of thing.
right.
And Trump is going to have to go through this. And it takes a level of personal discipline to do this right. And if you don't do it right, it will hide the polyps that you have, or it will hide the
That
damage that needs to be fixed. And that's to your
that's why
point
I think
last
he has
year.
to go back. Mhm.
Yes.
That's why he has to go back.
And right. And does anyone think he has the patience? Like, I'm the president of the United States. I got a golf thing this weekend. I wear white pants, right? Like, there's a
That's
point,
right. He's like, "I
right?
already
There's a
live on the toilet. Why do I have to sit here more?"
yeah. Just
I
yeah.
think
There's just tweet and put him on a fucking like a net over a bathtub, and then
I
fucking
mean,
Stephen Miller can come in with a
exactly.
hose every 2 hours, like he's a fucking Caesar.
I honestly think that if you're talking about an eventual scenario for his demise, I think he's gonna go out like Elvis, and the only difference will be that the toilet is gold instead of just a regular toilet. 'Cause he spends so
Right.
much time there, and he's so angry all the time, and he's up at 3 in the morning rage posting
Mhm.
while he's probably on the toilet with nothing moving through him because he doesn't eat vegetables or any fiber. So it's just, you can't predict that he'll just peacefully go in his sleep.
Mhm.
That's not that. I mean, I think that we all have our own, envisions of the morning we wake to the
Mhm.
news, how we
Right.
would feel, and immediately find out the source and how it happened, because that's what you do when you find out somebody died. But it's just, you want to be sure that there's something that resembles suffering in the remainder of his years. It doesn't have to be excruciating. Just something that resembles
Well well,
consequences and
also, like,
suffering.
it would be
Something,
I
a
think the
little
goal
bit
would
would be
be
good.
is that it comes directly from his realization that he's a piece of shit and he made mistakes. The hard part is believing that he would,
No, you never
right?
would. He doesn't think he was
No,
wrong
yeah,
about it.
and I here's the thing. I think there is an element. Whereas, do I think he'll ever admit the weakness? Do I think he'll ever really cop to it? No, because I think he's that training he got from Roy Cohn, which you can see in The Apprentice. If you haven't watched that movie, you should. Um, it because it really does approach like how much of an influence Roy Cohn had, more so than his
Right,
own father, who was, who obviously had an impact, but nowhere near what Roy Cohn did. Roy Cohn was somebody he sought the mentorship of, where his father was the one that was laid upon him by
right,
biology, and that's just different. And so you could see how much of that actually got through. And one of them is like, again, the famous quote from I think it was Angels in America or whatever, where they talk about this quote from Roy Cohn. Somebody interviewed him when he was dying of AIDS, and they said, what do you think people will, how do you feel about people saying that Roy Cohn was gay and died of AIDS? And he goes, Roy Cohn, and speaking about himself in the third person, which Trump also learned from him, Roy Cohn is not a
right.
gay man. Roy Cohn is a straight man who fucks boys. That was what Roy Cohn said, and he was fucking dying. He was going to be
Jesus.
dead in months, and he knew it. He knew he wasn't going to survive. He was terminally
Jesus.
fucking ill. It was on his deathbed. He went down like it was like if the Terminator, instead of giving the thumbs up,
Right,
just gave the middle finger and just sunk into the
right,
lava.
sure.
And
God
yeah,
damn it. Just
right.
imagine going out with nothing but hate on your lips, right? That,
Hmm.
what did you do? When you look back on your life, that's what you're gonna that's what you want people to remember you for? Like, it's so far beyond the realm of what a regular person would say. I mean,
Hmm.
because, like, there's all these different mythologies around death and what people's last words should be or what they should be thinking on their deathbeds. No one ever said they wish they worked more, like shit like that. That guy goes out saying, "Don't forget I fucked boys, but don't call me a gay." Like, what?
Right.
That
Rather
that's
be
your
known as a
legacy?
pedophile than a homosexual. Like like that.
Okay,
If that doesn't show
okay.
like a pathology, and again, that pathology goes well beyond internalized homophobia or anything like that,
Right,
to a focus on power. Because there's an idea that if you're
right.
gay, you're in a relationship with another man, and that person may or may not give and take in that relationship. Roy Cohn's thing was about downwards facing power all the time.
Mm,
They were below him,
right.
even if they were close to his same age or just slightly younger than him. He viewed them as boys, and I have no doubt there were some real ones in there, and Trump didn't give a shit. Yet again,
No,
two
'cause he got his
pedophiles he
own.
was buddies with forever till their end,
That
till
is
the end.
correct.
He was a ride or
Correct.
die Epstein and a ride or die Roy Cohn supporter. And so I don't want to hear shit from anybody who says you've got Trump derangement syndrome. Look, I don't need any other reason to hate him than that. I don't need I don't
No,
like I hate his policies, but I hated the policies of John McCain and Sarah Palin together. It didn't mean I hated John McCain. I didn't have McCain
no.
derangement syndrome because John McCain would have never been friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and he certainly told Roy Cohn to go fuck himself a couple of times.
That's right.
So
That's right.
like I don't
And he
need
was
it. I
no
don't
fan of
no one
Trump's.
needs another reason
Oh,
besides those. Then we can go to the rapes and his treatment of E. Jean Carroll and his treatment of
right.
those girls, if indeed it is true, that are in the Epstein files, which is exactly why that shit isn't being released. They would rather tell you
That's
about his
right.
fucking colonoscopy. Like, boy,
That's
did that
right.
talking point fucking dry up. I swear to God, they deported that father and that they knew
Oh
was
my god.
innocent just to draw attention so that Pam Bondi would have another scandal to eat the main scandal that the right gave a shit about. Because the right doesn't give a shit about a man with a Hispanic name being sent to South America
No, of
illegally.
course
They
they
don't care. But
of
they
course they
sure as
don't,
shit
and
care about the Epstein thing.
it's the hypocrisy. It's just ridiculous, and
Mhm.
it how are we what are we supposed to learn? What are we supposed to take from their lack of caring about falsely deporting somebody because they wanna do it to regular Americans too? That seems to be the party line, is what they're saying is that they're doing
Right.
this now as sort of a warm up to get rid of, I don't know, the Jews? Are we next? Are we next? Because if they're going after people from the Biden administration who apparently uh, showed anti-Christian bias, whatever that means, who do you mean? What is anti-Christian bias? Who are you talking about? Who are you
Okay.
talking about removing? Who are you talking about going after for
So
behaviors
the
and
problem Trump
why?
has
And
with so Jews are not next on Trump's list or the current modern Republican parties because their support of Israel
we're
is linked to
behind the
this.
brown
uh,
we're behind the
to
brown people still. We're
Yes,
still lower than the
well,
brown people.
well behind
Oh,
because they view
okay.
you
Okay.
as essential
Woo!
to the return of Jesus Christ. So you're safe
For
until
crying
then.
out
And they don't get to pick that date, so they're never going to go through with it. And one of the
Okay, cool.
reasons why there were people who are anti-Jewish that argued for the end of the Holocaust is that if Hitler was successful in eliminating the Jews, then the prophecy that's in the Bible can't come true. So there were people who would have given a shit that all the Jews got wiped out, no skin off their nose. They didn't like them in the first place, who were like, but if we don't have any, they can't all go back to the Holy Land. And therefore, Jesus arrives on Armageddon, the mountain that he's supposed to land on and rule like a king and wipe them all out because they haven't converted
Okay.
and understood that he's the King of Kings, which is an apocryphal,
Okay.
vengeful reading of fucking right wing evangelical turn of the belief system that's like sinners in the hands of an angry God, the original John Edwards,
Right.
not that John Edwards, but the old John Edwards
Right.
preacher that wrote the
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
what the archetype speech of American evangelical Christian thought that a lot of like uh,
Right.
Copeland and all those fuckers that they're branches of that tree, right? So they're not going to harm the Jews up till that point, and that's a problem that a big chunk of the maggot base has, like this dude who set fire to Shapiro's house and the guys who marched with the fucking
Mhm.
tiki torches. They're not part of that plan. They're doing it from a racial standpoint. They think people are coded
Right.
racially for certain behaviors, black people for crime, Jews for theft, whatever it is, stealing culture, stealing land, whatever it is. And they want those
Right.
people killed because they think everybody is a genetic wind-up toy that only goes in one direction except them because they have souls. It's so like
Of course.
don't I mean you dig deep at all.
Because
It's fucking
Jesus.
insanity. But
Because
right.
Jesus. It's
Well,
just
not even no
okay. Well, could they use that as the excuse for everything? Like Pete Hegseth. Oh yeah, I beat my wife. Oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Oh yeah, I have white Christian nationalist tattoos all over me. But I found God and God has
mhm.
forgiven me and I've
Fucking look at Russell
I've been
Brand.
cleansed. I've been cleansed in the blood of Jesus, and now I'm a perfect, flawless human, and I can do whatever I want. No, no, that's
Well,
not how it
I
works.
mean, Russell Brand was just charged with rape, indecent assault, and sexual assault in London. 4
Shocking.
charges. He's facing 4
Shocking.
charges in Los Angeles as well. Different
Get him.
women. Yeah, right.
So many MAGA
And
rapists. So many, Nancy
And his
Mace. You're
whole and
fine.
his whole
Keep
thing
bringing
is, since I found Jesus, I recognize that I acted wildly and
Shut the
those were
fuck
crazy
up,
days. Like, shut the fuck up. Right. Like no.
right?
That's not
He's
wild and
the one that should
crazy.
have been no, Russell Brand is the one who should have been shot into space, not Katy Perry.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
She
sorry,
came
but
back. So I would
wild and
want him to go and
like
not come.
no, you wild and crazy can involve the consent of another person who's being wild and crazy with you. Um,
Right.
if they aren't on board, you're not being wild and crazy. You're a rapist.
Correct. That is
Fuck
correct. And
off.
there's this little thing called consent, and it
Right.
totally still matters. So if you
Yep.
have not received consent, you could be naked and ready and good to go. And she says no, and that's when you stop. Game over. You have stopped then. And that's what I
Mhm.
told my I am the mother of 2 sons. I said, and I taught them, I said, when a woman says no, that is not the beginning of a negotiation. That is the end of the discussion. That's it. A woman says no, and she doesn't even have to explain why she says no. That's
Mhm.
what I'm telling you. And if you ignore that her basic autonomy, her basic rights as a human being, then I have not done my job in raising you. So you must learn this. And so, uh, when you haven't been properly
See,
taught how to treat other human beings, you
this
end
is
up
why
with a MAGA
I'm
cult.
lucky that I grew up in the age of hair metal instead of the age of new metal, like Limp Bizkit-y kind of shit versus
Yeah,
like
no, that
Rat
you were real men,
and all that shit. You know why? Because we
'cause
could
it's not
dress like
fake.
fucking girls if we wanted to, like tights and all this other stuff. And the entire like basic sexuality of all those songs, never mind the ballads that are like Love Forever songs, there's more like forever love ballads in hair metal than there are anywhere else. Like I
Right.
Can't Live Without You kind of songs. But on top of that,
I'm still
all the
loving
sexual
you.
all the sexually loaded stuff is either bragging about a girl that wants you or the idea that you're singing to a girl with the idea that you want me, I'm your backdoor man, you're going to cheat on your guy with me because you want to be with me. And there's
Right,
there's a lot of heavy lifting that is put on the lyrics of stuff like that with this assumption that it was sexist or whatever, like because of the Spinal Tap jokes of Smell the Glove and the like. But if you really listen to
right.
the music that I listen to, the entire concept is one, I want you to want me. That great Cheap Trick song.
Oh, I
Like
love that
that
song so
is
much.
the essence of it. And there was a like the new metal pickup artist bullshit 2000s metal that was all about
Oh,
I'm going to take you whether you want to or not, and even where they were being ironic like STP's sex type thing, which is
yeah,
about date rape. Like the people who listened to that song didn't understand the irony of it so much that Scott Weiland came out and did the show in a dress once to point out the fact that it was about that assault, about hurting,
right,
not loving somebody.
right,
And meanwhile, I grew up with, Scorpions, Rock You Like a Hurricane, Still Loving You, and
right,
Without the Night, and A Million to One, the Kiss song from Lick It Up. Like these are defining things. The idea being that you would be the best person for this girl you're singing
right,
to or you're talking to.
right.
And that concept, like we were talking about this all weekend at the Rockin' Pod thing, and the value of that as a root sexuality that I grew up with, like I consider myself so goddamn lucky that that was the era of music. Because even the 50s, I would argue that there's a snapback at, things come in waves. That the 50s
Mhm.
were this kind of like pushy Biff uh Tannen sexuality, like all shook up and all these kind of things are about like being sexually
Right,
overwhelmed and there's nothing I can do. You just got to kind of deal with it.
right,
Like,
right,
this kind of marital rape kind of storyline that was in a lot of shit that was
mhm,
gross. And then the poetry of the 70s gave us the 80s that allowed us to be romantic again in
right,
even in harder, edgier music, right?
mhm.
But like like now you think of just like how gross and forceful everything got. And
Oh, well, like,
like
Limp Bizkit, I Did It All for the Nookie,
yes,
like,
right.
that's one of the most, like, disgusting songs, and when I started on the radio, my station had
Uh,
just flipped from a real aggro white male to classic and modern alternative, and
uh-huh.
there were some calls about that when we stopped playing the Limp Bizkit and the Korn and
Mhm.
bands like that because there was that very early 2000s aggro mentality, and guys were really, like, I mean, it still exists, it's still prevalent, you still see it, but it was really
I got to tell you,
formulating there in a way I was like, "What is this
Greg.
disgusting shit?" Like, it's
Okay,
so
so
wrong the way.
hold on. So a couple of things. One is um um uh Schmoopy
Schmoopy,
yeah, in the chat room says those great hair metal songs like Lick It Up. Now,
lick it
let me
up.
yeah. Um
Whoa, it's only right
it's
now.
right now. Yeah, that's right. Um um
That's
uh
the
the
1980s for you, though. There was a lot of
Yeah, but
bravado
hold
along with
on.
the
But
leather.
let's look at the lyrics, and you can I look. I get that they're silly, playful songs, but I want to work the lyrics with you. Like how in Summer Show they do a reading of WAP at one point as
Oh,
poetry
okay.
as a joke, right?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Don't want to wait till you know me better. Let's just be glad for the time together. Life's such a treat, and it's time you taste it. There ain't no reason on earth to waste it. It ain't a crime to be good to yourself. That
That's
is
right.
not a belligerent sexual song. That is
Mhm.
flirting. That's what that is. That's
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
flirting song.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's
Yeah.
about like living up to okay, don't need to wait for an invitation. So like you can you got to live like you're on vacation. I think that was the reason for the previous rhyme was to get that you got to live like you're on vacation line in there. There's something
Sure.
sweet you can't buy with money. It's all you need. So believe me, honey, it ain't a crime to be good to yourself. And then the rest is chorus and bridge. But the purpose of the song is flirting, enticing, inviting.
Maybe
Literally,
maybe
invitation is in the lyrics. And that is a huge
yeah, and
difference from the belligerent male bravado bullshit that was prevalent during
true.
the new metal stuff. And it matters.
Perhaps
Yeah.
it was also a promise to
Huh?
his lady that he would lick it up. Perhaps it was just a promise of his
Well,
prowess. I'm gonna lick
well,
it up because it's only right now. Because, gentlemen, if you don't do that, then kiss your
uh-huh.
lady goodbye. My ex-husband
That's
had a
right.
great had a my ex-husband had a great line about going down on women, and he would
Hmm.
say, "You show me a guy who won't go down on his woman, and I'll show you a woman I can steal." That's what he used to say before we were together because he recognized the importance of pleasing your partner. My ex-husband's also a doctor, so he knows where all the parts are. And there was no, is that it? Is that it? Is
Hmm.
that it? He knew. Anyway, that's one of the very few nice things you'll hear me say about my ex. But yeah, there's a difference between confidence and false
Right.
bravado,
And
right?
the
And
pickup artist
MAGA is
era,
all
it,
right.
yeah,
That's all false bravado.
right.
MAGA has nothing but
That's what the
false
incel world is
bravado.
based on. Is like
That's
guys who failed at pickup
exactly,
artistry. Right.
exactly. And what they've done is take their rejection and turned it into this ball of hatred towards all women. And they have turned that into like sort of their personal rejection is why they want to hit out at the entire world. And so
Hmm.
women collectively are to blame, and it doesn't matter if you're nice to them or you're kind when you say, oh, but no thank you, like I'm never going to say to anybody, back in the day when I cared about dating, if somebody asked me out and I wasn't interested, I wouldn't be like, ew, no. I was totally nice about it because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a nice person for the like I talk tough, but I'm mostly a nice person and I don't look to make
Hmm.
anybody's life difficult. And I would
Hmm.
say what you're talking about is from the 80s. We still had, like good intentions. And even
Hmm.
though there was some harder metal stuff that maybe went a little blue, but what you're talking about is a more innocent time. Pre-internet, being
Yep.
saturated 24 hours a day with bad news and porn and imagery, belittling women and portraying women in a specific way. And so it makes me very nostalgic for that time, and I
I
wish,
agree.
like, I would maybe one of these days, you and I'll just do a show where all we do is talk about music because coming from radio as I do,
Yeah. Right.
I love
And with your brand
I
new
love
mic
to
that
do
gives you
that, and
your radio voice back, it's
oh,
fantastic.
I know
That's
we're
what
over,
happened.
but
But
can I tell a very
sure.
quick story about my
Yeah.
radio? Okay. So I mean, I loved being on the radio. It was my favorite job ever, and I would go back tomorrow if they would have me. But and there are things that people would call, and I would always answer the phone when people called because I remember calling into radio stations when I was a kid and no one would answer, and I would get frustrated. So I would always answer the phone, and I had shockingly a large male listening audience because they call it
Not
theater of the
shockingly.
mind. And
Right.
even before I had my picture on the radio station's website, I would have men calling me.
Hmm.
And this one day, I could get Alzheimer's. I will remember this phone call for the rest of my days.
Yeah.
Th- This man
A place
calls,
for
and he
Tara.
goes, and I answer the call, 94.7. This is Tara. He goes, this is Tara. And I said, yes, it is. He goes, Tara, you answer your own phone calls? I said, absolutely, I do. He goes, all right, well, I'm going to say something that I've been meaning
Uh-oh.
to call in and say to you for a while now. And I gripped the edge of the desk, waiting,
Uh-huh.
just waiting, because I couldn't just
Hmm.
hang up on him. And he goes, Tara, your voice is so sexy. It makes me want to jerk off and hit my reflection in the mirror.
All right. So
And I was like, okay,
it
bye. I
was like an
couldn't hang up
audio dick
fast
pic
enough. Oh my God. I was just grateful we were not live on the air when I took that call. I learned
in the
very early
mirror.
on,
Oh yeah.
you do not
No.
take calls on the
No.
air
Never take
at
calls
all.
live. No.
So that's from 2004. That has been in here for 21 years already.
Yeah.
It will never go. It'll almost never go away. And I will tell you that when Devlin and she was very helpful in helping me get all of this set up. I was just like, it just reminded me of all of the radio days and how standing in that studio by myself, and 99% of the calls were from those guys who loved Limp Bizkit and still thought it was okay to treat a woman like a woman in a Limp Bizkit song. So,
Yes.
have we evolved? I don't know. I don't think so. Not too much because there's still a
I mean,
lot
I
of
think we go
terrible out
through
there.
phases, and there's a lot. You can always tell when trouble is brewing when wrestling and country music make a comeback. We've
Ah,
gone through,
shit. Like, over the weekend, did you see Trump at UFC? That was
yeah,
so disgusting. I
yeah,
liked when he snubbed Cheryl Hines, though. That was
yeah, that
funny.
was fun because everybody
They both
wigged out
have me
about it.
blocked on Twitter. They have so much in common. They
Right.
love UFC and hate me. It's awesome.
That's good. So Wayne says Gene Simmons
Yeah.
blew flames over your head. I did
Gene
I talked about
Simmons
this
is
weekend.
MAGA.
Yeah,
You
when I
know
was a
Gene
kid.
Simmons is MAGA. Gene Simmons
Uh,
blocked me on Twitter also because he's
yeah,
MAGA.
yeah. Hence the reason why I've always been a Paul fan in that regard. Um,
I enjoy Ace
and
Frehley also.
well,
I love Back in the New York Groove. That's a great song. You
I do
cannot
too.
deny Back
It's
in
a
the New York
cover.
Groove. You
It's
cannot
a
deny
cover
that.
though. The rest of that album is
I know,
amazing.
but still.
But I will say
Still, it's a good song.
one of the reasons Ace got kicked out of the band though is he collects Nazi memorabilia, and the two guys who front the band, Gene and Paul, are both Jewish, so they were like,
God
"Fuck
damn
you."
it. Like,
I know.
can we get a
Yeah, yeah.
fucking break over like, sometimes at Low Bar Corral, they'll play Pink Floyd, and I will quietly extract myself from the room, and people will say, "Why weren't you there?" To sing "Wish You Were Here," and I'm like, "Because Roger Waters hates Jews, that's why."
Yeah, Roger Waters is a
I won't
fucking
be in a
asshole.
room.
Well, and again,
I will
okay,
not
so
be in a
Roger
room where
Waters
Pink
falls
Floyd
into
is
that
being
Oliver
played.
Stone thing where I feel like, we realize that all this time Trump's been a fucking Russian stooge and they've been backing him and
Yeah,
paying him this whole time. And so all of his
yeah,
everything he said over the years has to be taken in that context. The publication, the creation of art of the deal even seems now like a piece of fucking propaganda that they helped him create. The
right.
relationship with fucking Burnett, who went to Russia to make a documentary about Putin, and they sent him back with marching orders to do a show with Trump that would get funded magically through executive producers that sketchily don't fucking exist, right? That shit. Like, you got to look back on these folks. Roger Waters is one of these dudes who just looks like he's there to undermine Western civilization from the inside without having
Yeah.
because he thinks communism's a possibility and therefore he wishes he could bring about a better system and he's just deluded or whatever the fuck. But because he genuinely wants he thinks somebody should be in charge and it should be him. We
No.
don't need no
No, we do not.
education. Yes, you fucking do, or you wouldn't say we
Yes, you
don't need
fucking
no, you
do.
dumb motherfucker.
Right.
Like
And
the
Linda
lack of
McMahon
irony.
wouldn't be did you see Linda McMahon called AI A1, like steak sauce,
Yes.
like the steak sauce.
Oh, it's good.
I'm
She pours
so,
A1
like,
AI on her
for
steak.
it
Everybody's
yum,
like, I love
yum,
Vinnie
no wonder it
Vincent.
tastes
Vinnie
like shit.
Vincent is a lunatic and a pain in the ass, and he's also trans. So Vinnie has
Who?
transitioned, although he still goes by Vinnie Vincent. So it's up to him. I don't define.
Oh,
I don't need anybody to tell me how the fuck they want to present themselves. But he,
I did not know Vinnie Vincent transitioned.
for all
Good for him.
practical
Good for
purposes,
them.
lives as
Good
a woman for her.
good for them.
Although he doesn't
Her,
kind
them.
of care.
Does he
Yeah, no, he doesn't care
do
about
they have
pronouns.
doesn't
Yeah,
care about
insofar as I
pronouns.
know.
Okay, well,
So,
fair enough.
but
But if
but
you're
uh,
presenting as a woman, I'll call you she if that's what you'd
but
like.
if you like the
Who
band
cares?
Slaughter, which I don't know why you wouldn't, they're a lot of fun. They're great guys, and Mark Slaughter's still his vocals still sound amazing. The song
Good
"Burning
for him.
Bridges" is about how they became Slaughter. They used to be Vinnie Vincent's Invasion, and Vinny
Mhm.
was such an asshole on the tour that he was just increasingly getting bad. And then he tried to make it up to everybody, or said he was going to, took them all out to dinner at the Hard Rock in Chicago. And then they
Mhm.
ran up he was like buying booze for everybody and food, and him and like the band and their techs. So like 15 people. And then he left and didn't pay for it. And all of them
Oh
were
my
salaried
god.
musicians, and they all got stuck there trying to figure out how to scramble together like 8 grand, which was more than they would make on the whole fucking
Holy
tour, to
shit.
pay this giant bar bill that he was supposedly throwing for them with his Kiss money and his label money. And he left them fucking just terrible, just fucking terrible. And if you listen to the song "Burning Bridges," there's literally a breakdown in it where they're like, "You forgot your wallet at the hotel, huh?" Like in the middle of it, where they're just screaming at him. But Slaughter became Slaughter after they all left Vinnie Vincent on that tour.
That's great. That's great.
Fuck.
That's great.
Yep.
See, you and I need to do a show together where we just
I
tell all
agree.
kinds of awesome stories that we know or have experienced ourselves with musicians. I mean, my Dave
Yeah.
Grohl story is what it is, but I have
Oh,
other
yeah.
stories about hanging out with
No
rich
doubt.
people. So, I mean, one of these days
Jason saw Vinnie Vincent's
we'll
Invasion
do that.
open in '87 for Iron Maiden. That would have been Mark Slaughter, and that would have been one of the last fucking shows
Hot
because I want to say it
damn.
happened in May or something that they were like, um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And
Awesome.
General Putnam's asking about Tara Howe, please address the breaking news that Bukele is refusing to return Garcia. Yeah, he's saying it's absurd that they would return him or whatever because he's in league with Trump. He's going to visit Trump, and they're just going to use this as cover. There's no reason. He won't do it. The U.S., he's not going to return him. The U.S. would have to get him. So he's using that as the excuse to block it. And again, this has to be an increasing amount of pressure where the Congress or the judiciary literally sends a people from, like, the judge can order U.S. Marshals to go get this person, and the
Well, the
president
Supreme
can't
Court,
stop them.
they're defying the Supreme Court right now, aren't they? Like, the
Well,
Supreme Court's like,
on
"You can't do this," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna do it anyway," is
no,
basically
the Supreme Court was very watery intentionally in their response. But a singular judge could rule that this person, they've already done it, that he has to be brought back. The next step, and
if
there
he's still
it's
alive, can we prove he's
he'll
still alive also?
well, yes,
We need
like,
I'd like proof
yeah,
of life. That'd be great.
right.
Proof of life
Well,
and
and
getting him back.
here's what you do is that you sue the U.S. government for kidnapping. That's where it's got to go next from the family's point of view and their lawyer. And then even if it's to transfer him out of there to a third country, since he's not a U.S. citizen technically, get him to his home country. Otherwise, it's kidnapping. And like that, there's international law about that both the U.S. and El Salvador have to participate in. So, but it's
Mhm.
going to take steps. But Trump and those guys are going to hold off as long as possible because they do not want to admit to what they're doing.
It's crazy too, because this isn't what your government is supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be
No, it's
micromanaging this
exactly
shit.
what fucking Alex Jones said that they would do to us. That's exactly like the tyrannical government. Motherfucker, that's what this is. That's what that is. Like your
That's
whole,
not
like, they're
what
going
it's
to
supposed
scoop
to
us
be,
up and
bro.
put us in camps. That's how you do it. You start this way, and then you have the legal precedent that the president has the ability to scoop up anybody the fuck they want and put them in isolation for national security. Even if
Yeah.
you're wrong, it allows you like a fucking horseshoes level of legal righteousness in these situations. That's how you get concentration camps. That's how you get internment camps. And this whole, it's one of the reasons why Alex Jones is like, they got him off the air and disappeared him. It wasn't Biden that shut him down. It was Republicans. He's in fucking Texas. Nothing stops him from, he can lose the name InfoWars and stuff. But that was a fucking state civil suit that made him lose it. It wasn't the government shutting him the fuck down, but it's
Right.
Trump that's stiff arming him now because
Mhm.
all of his talking points look like shit. If you point out, wow, that's everything you warned us that the Dems were going to do, Trump is actively doing.
Every accusation is a confession. We've been saying
Mhm.
that forever.
Right.
And it's he's they told us at the outset what they were gonna do, and Democrats were like, "They're not really wait, they're really doing it. Holy shit."
Mhm.
At least there are enough Democrats now who are standing up and pushing back, and we're seeing more and more every day. And some
Right.
Republicans are. I mean, not every single Republican is
Oh,
okay with what's
his
happening, and we're
Mary
seeing
Steiner saying his
some
home country is El Salvador. Um, still, we do not have, insofar as I know. I mean, and again, this is why Trump's emergency powers are the problem, and Congress has to. We have to win back the House, period, or there will be
yeah.
no end to this. We have to.
It's
The Democrats, I don't give a fuck if you're like, but this one and not hard enough and no.
that no.
Democrats need to take
Mm,
over the House, the Senate, and the presidency again. And I don't want to hear shit about anybody. I don't want to hear any whining about a single Democrat until we fucking do. It's because
correct.
the vote blue, no matter who, has never mattered more than it does now. And everybody who is like, I don't know, Genocide Joe or whatever is exactly who gave us the fucking carpet bombing of Gaza that is
No.
happening, you dumb motherfuckers. So no, 100 times no. Absolutely
No.
not. Fuck that.
If you
And I will say it into the
could
face of any dipshit who still flags that
absolutely.
nonsense around, from Kyle Kalinske to TYT or any of these assholes.
Fuck 'em.
Hassan, like, fuck you. You caused this shit.
Absolutely.
There are people
Absolutely, and
dying
please
unnecessarily because you're like, I don't know, it's really a coin flip. Fuck off.
and, I don't if you could remind me when either Kamala Harris or Joe Biden suggested flattening Gaza to build a hotel, you could
Yeah, right.
find that for me. Can you find that for me somewhere? And the other thing that always frustrated me about this conversation and continues to, first of all, Netanyahu and Trump are like stepbrothers owned by
Right.
Putin, and they're both war criminals. So don't tell me that Trump is not sympathetic to the Jewish people. He is
Mhm.
beholden to Putin, and Putin says, here's your best friend, and here's another best friend who has some satellites, and he's going to help you out, and you're all going to get along. Do you understand me? Is basically what that is. So don't point to Trump and say he's a champion for Israel. He's a champion for the Jews. No, he fucking isn't. He is a
Right. No.
Putin puppet. And it could be Benjamin Netanyahu or somebody else. It wouldn't matter. These are figureheads who have been put there by
Yeah.
Putin because they're easy to control.
Rob
That's
H
what
has a great
they
question.
are,
Where are the Gaza protests now? And again, there's one
right?
end like, oh, they're afraid that Trump will do stuff. Okay, first of all, if you're an American citizen, you
What?
can't do stuff. You don't have to take over something
What?
to do a protest. We've done protests. We went out protesting, hands off, did great. There's going to be another one coming up.
We're doing
I'm
it
going to
again
go to that
on
one too.
Saturday.
Right. That
I'll be
like
there.
that.
I'll be there.
And so no, you could protest. You can still protest. You can't create these fucking fake encampments and stuff. And I believe, and I'll gladly go toe to toe with anybody who wants to sell me some line of bullshit that these people legitimately gave a fuck about the Palestinian people. I call bullshit. No way. I
No,
think this is what they
nope.
wanted to fucking happen because as soon as Trump got in office, they clammed the fuck up, and they
That's right.
never, ever went down and encircled fucking Mar-a-Lago when Netanyahu was there during the campaign. They were up dicking around at the DNC, attacking
Yes,
people who
they
were
were,
already
and then they
trying to
found
do
out.
something, and they never, ever went down. Not a one. There was never like two people
Nope,
going hands off Gaza in front of the fucking gates at Mar-a-Lago. Not a
nope,
fucking one. And so
no.
all I
There
can believe is
were
either
at our protest.
yeah, right. And so I believe personally that like these were people who were for it, for what's happening to this. They just knew it would drive to this. It's just and anybody who followed
Well,
along was a useful idiot that didn't know that they were part of that.
it's just a question of making more people aware, which is
Right.
close to impossible when the mainstream media isn't reporting on, and they barely talk about anything that matters because they're so, still so obsessed with
Well,
watching
and
him
also
act like
like
a moron. So, but
like
I mean,
Trump just okay, Trump's State Department just denied South Sudanese refugees the ability to come stay with family during what's going on there in the United States, which is just, standard normal
it's
visitation
just
visa,
cruel.
chain migration shit. They don't need to be citizens. They literally just want to get a visa and come here. They're stiff arming them as the armies are moving across that area, just wiping people the fuck out. And where are the Gaza protesters about them? I'll tell you where they are. Nowhere. You know why? Because there's no Jews on one side and everybody's black, so they don't give a fuck.
That's right.
I'm
That's
calling it. It's racist as
it's
shit.
that is, and it because it's not them, right? It's again, the first they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything, and this one, they no. And that's why, when we were having those fights during the campaign,
Other
I
than
was
that, I
like,
have
"Well,
no
what's your
opinion.
solution? What's" yeah, I know, right? But, like, what and I've said this before, I can't stand it when people complain but don't offer a solution. Like, you have a problem with the way the Democrats were handling the Middle East, fine, many people did. Well, what's your
Did you
solution for
heard saying
stopping
they're in
Hamas
New York
terrorists?
City? They're in New York City. Hal, you're wrong. No, there's a spattering. They're nowhere near where they were. There's not, and a single one in New York City because that's where a bunch of Jews are. Is another
That's right.
situation where they're simply
Right.
coming out because of the fucking like Jesse Jackson, Jaime Town bullshit that people have carried around about New York City for a long time. They're not on the other college campuses. They're not in fucking Connecticut. They're not in Los Angeles. That's where the hands-off protesters are. The people who care about all the issues. But the
That's right.
like the spattering of people again. I would argue that I don't. The point is, not everybody who protested was full of shit and all this kind of stuff. I think they were used by a large portion of these folks. But the organized, big, like full press dried up as soon as Trump took office, and they were just like, eh. And they
Yeah.
never cared about Sudan. Never.
I mean, No, of course not, and it's
And
just
more people have
what
died, by the way, in Sudan in the last
of course
year
they
than they have in since October 7th in
of
Gaza
course.
and Israel.
And we don't hear about that
Nothing.
because right. So, it's just, a failure of our mainstream media on top of everything else that's going on, and there's so many things that fall through the cracks, which is why we are so lucky to have the
Mhm,
Political Voices Network and everybody who's involved with it because we are out here every single day,
mhm,
so many of us doing all we can do to make sure that the truth is getting out there to the people who need to hear it the most. And
mhm.
I may not be the biggest fan of Bernie Sanders, but I was very encouraged by the
Yep.
turnout that I saw
Him
for
and
him and
AOC,
AO,
absolutely.
not just
Right.
in Los Angeles, but they went to Utah. They went to Utah
Yes.
and had a huge
And
turnout.
and Walz going
Very
doing the
encouraged.
same thing.
Yes,
Like,
and they're gonna
that's
con
how you do
Democrats
it.
are gonna continue to do this, which is why we need to go where the red state people are. We need to go and do shows and talk to the people in red states because one of the other things that we have to keep remembering as we go through this is most of the voting public is not on social media. And so sometimes the best
Mhm.
way to talk you have to take the message to the people because you can't just tweet or put up a thing
A
on Blue Sky or do this and expect and expect people to just know about it.
right.
So you have to make efforts to reach an audience, and it's going to take more of an effort now because people are so lazy and like, well, if it's not right in front of me, I'm not going to it. We have to be the ones that say, all right, well, I don't see our messaging enough out here, so we have to go out there, which is why we took
Yes.
to the streets, which is why the
Also,
protests on
yeah,
this Saturday
and
should be
they are
twice as
mentioning
big as the last one.
both Bernie and AOC and Waltz and the other people that have been going out with them
Swalwell and all of those.
mention the Gazans, mention the situation in
Right,
Israel,
right,
and are basically trying to like resuscitate the even the concept of a two-state solution, which has been
right,
stabbed through the heart by the very people that were pushing this genocide Joe bullshit last year
right.
and just walking right into the right-wing trap, going, I think he'll be better for the Palestinians. Get the fuck out of here. I get really riled up
Donald Trump
about this shit
is just so
because
mad.
again, it wasn't the right wingers that tipped this in those swing states. It was the people who bought some sort of bizarre bullshit that he would be better for the economy and better for the Palestinians than Joe would. And
No,
then therefore Harris
never.
would, which is just
No.
fucking madness. And the idea that you would just kind of shrug it off like, and the amount of conversation, especially in TYT world, about like 6 of one, half dozen of another when it comes to Israel is such a lie that it got people killed. It is as bad, I would argue, it is as bad as RFK's anti-measles shit that is getting kids killed. It's like, well,
Oh my god, it's so
eat
dangerous.
some fucking celery. I don't know. Like, fuck you. People are dying
It's just
unnecessarily.
drink
We
some
do have a
vinegar.
solution. And
Yeah,
like,
no,
oh, other
it's
like I yeah.
infuriating and to have any human being who is over, who is of voting age to believe that Donald Trump is better than anyone else for
Right.
this country. It already right there. Right there, that's a mentality that I would wanna dig into. It's like, how do you believe that he is better than anyone when he's not even allowed
Right.
to run a business in New
And
York
okay,
City?
if you could tie your shoes and cross the street without being hit by a car, I have to understand that you're smart enough to understand that that's an absurdity, which means it's on purpose. I can't believe you're
Right,
that fucking stupid. I think that, look, we all know that in the Arab world, just like in every racial and ethnic and religious community across the world, look at the Catholics and the Protestants in Ireland and England, there have been like fights to the death that simmer and then break out and simmer and break out over the centuries. There are deep seated hatreds based on killings that happened decades ago that come up again, like Hatfield and McCoy shit. And
mhm.
the only thing that makes any sense is that a bunch of these people went, you know what? The Palestinians have been a fucking pain in the ass. If we could just end this, we could probably do some business in the Middle East and shit would stabilize. Maybe it's just time they got to go. And I don't like them to begin with because they're on the other side. We're Shia, they're Sunni, or they're Sunni and we're Shia. And so, or they align themselves with the Shia, even though they're Sunni or vice versa, which is always the question about Islamic State and fucking Hamas and what they've done. And they're like, well, there's like this almost like teenage social media attitude towards real life where they're just like, maybe we should just swipe right on them and fuck it. Or swipe left, I guess. I don't know how the swipes go. Swipe left is no, right? You don't want them swipe right is
Swipe
deep,
left
right?
is no, swipe left is Yes, swipe left is no,
Denied.
swipe right is.
Yeah. So
It's
basically,
been a
they're having
it's
this
been a
attitude
long
like
time.
they came to, yeah, me too. I've never done it, but the idea is that
Oh,
uh
lucky
uh,
you.
swipe, like they basically had this attitude instead of like, oh my dear God, this is a very, if we don't watch how we discuss these things or whatever, hundreds of people can die unnecessarily in this circumstance. So we really got to, really work this carefully so that we have as few people dying and as much of a solution gets through as possible, because the incendiary nature of it. And a bunch of people just fucking came along and went, you know what? I'm done.
No,
I'm over it.
they don't care how many of us die. They don't care how many people die. They just don't,
Right.
because it's not happening to them personally or anyone they know, and it's happening far away. So, it's easy for them to push it out of their minds and
Right.
refocus on some other manufactured thing that makes them feel connected to something. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. There are people who will always represent for the Middle East because they're Palestinian or they're Israeli. That is their homeland. That is their culture. That is their
Sure.
fa I saw, and you'll see, and as they should, because advocating for your homeland, advocating for your country, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Killing other people to save your homeland is a whole other
Right.
discussion. And I, of course, would love to see a peaceful two-state solution. That would be delightful.
Well, I would argue
It's
that
just
there's situations where
I don't know that that can be,
you cannot do either, because they both count at the same time. And the argument,
right,
the example I would make is waving a Confederate flag. You are
right.
arguing for your Southern heritage and where you grew up and who your family were, and it was just a long time ago, and the North attacked you, and it wasn't really about slavery, but it kind of was. And so you feel completely fine putting that flag on your car, and then you drive around even in parts of the South today, or you drive north with it, and people are like, hey, what the fuck?
No, I know. I
You
lived
can't
there.
just
I know.
I'm just advocating for my heritage. That's why we want this
That's
Robert E. Lee statue.
different.
That's why
Yeah,
we need Fort Bragg to be called Bragg again, right? Like that.
no.
It's the same mentality.
It
It's
is
the
the same
same issue.
mentality, but it's also, we as a nation don't believe the South won. It's people here and there who believe the South won.
Sure.
It's not the over what, but, if you
Yeah.
are an Israeli citizen, you have every right to fly the Israeli flag. If you're a
Sure.
Palestinian citizen, you have, it's that thing. And in fact, that's and I know we're way, way, way over, but this Saturday's march, one of the things that they're asking is for people to bring the American flag, because
Yep.
one of the things that we have to remember as Democrats is that we are Americans,
Yep.
and the
We
Republican
don't
Party does
let them
not.
take it. Don't
No, and we
let
talked
them
about this
take
was
it.
a prevailing. No, this is a prevailing message we had at the DNC, which is Republicans do not hold a copyright on patriotism. They do
Right.
not own the flag. They do not have, they are not the only ones who are entitled to call themselves patriots. Patriots should not be a bad word. The sight of the American flag should not make you cringe and from embarrassment.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we are doing in this Saturday's march is reclaiming, not that we have to, because it's been our flag all along, but showing that Democrats do have pride in our
Right.
country. We have pride in our flag. We are the true patriots because we are the ones trying to hold on to our democracy,
Damn
not
straight.
sell it
Real
off to the
democracy.
highest bidder. That's what
Right.
democracy looks like.
That's right.
Democracy is not saying, let's blow up the system because we can and then not replace
Right.
it with anything
It's like
and wipe our asses with $100
the
bills because we
nihilistic
can.
authoritarianism of if we can't get everything, nobody gets anything, that we've been
That's
dealing with on
right.
our side,
And
or this neo-fascism on the right that says people are too stupid to rule themselves. It's time for a harder dictatorship. V.D. Hertz says Hal does not understand what happened to Israel after the USSR fell.
I think Hal does pretty much
Yeah, I think
understand
I
things
do.
very well. I
Yeah,
think you
yeah,
do. Hal is one of the most educated, well-read people, and he doesn't just. One of the things that I've always appreciated about you, Hal, and this is not blowing smoke,
Mhm.
you will not go into a discussion if you are not prepared. You will
Right.
not do something like this if you don't have all of the pertinent information and you go above and beyond. You are someone who doesn't just talk about China, you have an on the ground experience of
Right.
China. When you talk about it, you talk about it with information and an experience that so many Americans don't have. And so I'm more inclined to listen to that. I think you can
I also
look at a
tend to, yeah, I think it's important to know that you do not have a lot of people who say stuff like that. And all due respect to V.D. Hertz, I think it's just a misunderstanding of where you might have thought some singular phrase and you're not taking in the context of other things I've said about it.
yeah,
But specifically speaking, a lot of people who talk like that have single rail ideology, meaning they come
Yes.
from a position where they are locked into an ideology and they won't read anything that conflicts with that because they're afraid it will either undermine it or it's it's reinforcing the enemy's belief or whatever.
Right.
Whereas because of this job, and I think you do too, like we have to see what the right wing is saying about things in these
Yeah.
situations. And there are times when they co-opt truth and bastardize it. They take something that is true
Right.
and then they turn it into something else. And sometimes people on our side of the aisle will avoid that truth because of the bastardization. Instead of going,
Right.
no, 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 you don't have a monopoly on that truth because your interpretation feeds your crowd. That's not how this
Right.
works. I don't have to
Right.
shy away from that truth of that one thing that happened or that circumstance that occurred or like fucking the Tuskegee Airmen or fucking J. Edgar Hoover's spying or those kind of things. I don't have to.
Right.
You hyper focus again, that's the warts and all versus all warts attitude. And
Right.
a lot of people who have singular lane ideology focus on the all warts position. And if you don't know what the
Right.
other side is saying about you, you will abdicate reality. You will,
Yeah.
right? You will abdicate the truth, and then that you will give them a weapon for which they can attack you because you are denying a truth that is materially on the
Right.
ground. And it's our responsibility to not do that while maintaining our ethics and care for the people because
Yeah.
again, I don't
It
think any issue is partisan. I think that solutions are partisan.
Yes. And it's not a lack of understanding.
No.
You are not lacking in understanding, and I think
Mm-mm.
that's an important distinction to make, especially since we're in a position where we're not just here to chatter and entertain. We have to inform you, and we have to deal in facts. It's really important that we know what we're talking about, and we're not
Mhm.
just throwing opinions. I mean, we have opinions, but we have to mix those in with these are the facts of what happened. And maybe, maybe that is the USSR Israel thing is a bigger discussion than we can have, especially since we're so far over already. It's not a lack of understanding, though. It's just
Right.
such a multi-layered, very entrenched, difficult situation. There is not one solution. It would have to be a multi-layered solution with multiple parts all coming together at the same time with a bunch of different leadership coming together and agreeing on a peaceful solution. And if that was possible, it would have happened already. And you have to remember that Hamas is the one that broke the peace treaty that, they're the ones who created it. They're the
Mhm.
ones who broke it. And so it goes back to if you have a better solution for what has happened in the Middle East, better than Antony Blinken, better than
Right.
Joe Biden, who has a lifetime of foreign policy experience, better than our generals and our other foreign policy, please let them know what it is. Because if they can't come to it, but you can, fabulous. Share that. It's not
Mhm.
a lack of understanding. It is frustration with how hard it is to do what seems from the outside a simple thing that is absolutely
Mhm.
not simple. It is not simple to ask two different countries to suddenly coexist peacefully when
Right.
they have millennia of not coexisting peacefully.
Especially if
And again,
if our country's being run by somebody who can't get along with anybody and has never had an actual friend.
correct.
So
And they
like you don't
also
even
have
know how to
they have no
maintain relationships.
right, and they have no interest in getting along because that's not what's lining their pockets.
Also,
It's
yeah.
war, right? And so
I'm gonna
again,
we could get into
we're
we're way over, so I'll let you go because I got to
yeah,
do a show
way
this afternoon as
over.
well. But I want to remind
Okay.
everybody, the sound of settling, move it closer. There you go. Excellent.
Hey,
Tara Dublin does
it
indeed rock. Yep, there you go.
look, Cameron
Um,
Crowe loves it. Cameron Crowe loves my book. I don't wait, can you see
fantastic.
that? Cameron
Yep,
and he's reading the sequel right now. Cameron Crowe is reading the sequel right
excellent.
now.
Well, we're very
Buy my
proud of
book.
you,
Buy
Tara.
my book.
Buy the book. Go to
Sign
Tara
up for
Dublin Rocks
Substack. Thank you very
and
much.
sign up for the Substack.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
I will talk to you again
I'll
very
do your
soon.
AMSR. All right.
Yeah,
Bye.
look out.
See you
I'm
tomorrow on the
telling you, it's
Kara Show.
side
Bye.
career. Oh, okay, bye. All right. I love how she just bails out instantly. Like, can any of my guests just let me have the ability to just kind of softly say goodbye to them? One of the things, okay, so chat room before I go, since I'm hanging out anyways. The one of the things that I always like have an issue with, like Steph is a master of it. I don't know how she does it. She hangs up on people without saying goodbye. And maybe I'm just Midwestern. This is a Midwestern goodbye. I'm just letting you know. Where I just can't go. Like I always thought in movies, it was always funny when nobody says goodbye at the end of a conversation. They're like, we'll be there by the train station. Like,
How, in the name of Zeus's
my
butthole,
wait,
did you get out of your cell?
my MIDI thing is working.
All right. Stop right there, and I'll bring back the sun.
The mapping just kicked in all of a sudden. I guess it needed a rest, and I was gone over the weekend. So that's hilarious. That's wonderful. Look at that silliness. Yeah, because I mapped it to this one. Did it go there? Where does it start? Going up the key.
Looking around here, I can tell you're a genuinely dirty person.
There you go. All right, there you go. So which one is this one? Okay, C5, C5, 1. Oh, it's way up in the octaves. I have to go up a whole octave for that. 4, 1 would be here. There it is. Oh, I feel so much better. All right. So stupid. Yeah, I transposed it. Like it's a short keyboard, so it just. Anyways, I can't just hang up on people. I don't know how that works. And she can just like Sue and Rockford. Blah, 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 like, anyways, I just love this, and I wanted to say this. Anyways, I don't know how that's done. And on the news programs, you'll always see the person who's the guest on like Deadline White House or all these things, and they're about to say goodbye. Do you notice that? Am I the only person that notices this? Where they're about to say goodbye, and you're like, and they're like, I want to thank you for coming on. The person's about to go, and they just cut them off, and they're gone. Like the person in the booth goes, bye. They go, and they're out. And that drives me crazy. And I guess it's totally a Midwest and Southern thing. I don't get how they do it. Because if I was in a thing, it'd be like, my God, we have to get the money there. The kidnappers are going to have her all day. She might starve. They've got her in a coffin under the ground with only so much oxygen. All right, get the money together, and I'll meet you by the old depot at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Yeah, traffic's bad. Yeah. Yeah, I should probably leave about 6. You should probably leave about 6. I would leave about 6:10, 6:15, something like that. 6:10. Err on the side. I mean, obviously, we're running. Yeah. Anyways, absolutely. And I'll call you. I'll text you when I'm on my way, and then I'll talk. Yeah. But we got to get it there by 7 o'clock. Just remember, 7. That's what they said. Yeah, I guess we could have it there early at 6:45. Like that's how phone calls go with me. And I don't know how, like, the fucking movie ones are just, like, aggravating. Right? It's amazing they're able to do that. No, that's a mom thing. Ouch, Sarasota. Thank you, JD. Bring back Matt the Rat. Okay, I will. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, like, hold on one second. I have to check on something. Does my oops thing work? Oh, yeah, and I have to put this thing on. Hold on. Nope, wrong one. Hold on. It has to be... Things are breaking down. Something there we go. Wrong with the picture of sound. We'll be right back. Just as soon as we can. We appreciate your patience. Maybe you could begin. What a doing? Hi, well, hi everybody. It's me, Matt the Maggoty Rat. I just want to remind you guys to like and subscribe. A boobity bop, ping pong. Don't forget everybody to hit that like. We talk about difficult things, but we do it from love and you deal with it. God damn, this song is tiring. Probably written by a foreigner or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what to tell you, folks. It's just something you gotta deal with. It's how the fuck does it? Yeah. How's he end this thing? I'm going home. I'll see you guys later. And scene. To the back row. All right, I think see, this is the problem. I don't have like my end button anymore. That's the problem. So I have to click it manually, and that kind of takes the drama out of it. You know what I mean? Da ba da da, wing dong, boo. Doo-ba-doo-wop. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-bop. Hey. By the way, I will be back later. Just get used to the idea. Cursing puppet, but fuck that. Never encourage that kind of goddamn behavior from a... The weird part is... Honestly, I gotta say, this is really probably the most fucked up thing, but, Hal, I gotta tell you something. Hal, listen, everybody. Hal was talking using the puppet, like he was still had me going, my mouth and everything, and he was still doing that after the camera had gone away. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, are you fucking crazy? Like, why? No one can see it. Like, you could just do the voice, asshole, and you're not. You're still doing, I mean, seriously. What is wrong with this guy? Anyways, that's it. I think. I'll see you guys later. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. One more thing. Hold on. What the hell? How do I sense it? This is so weird. Like, I'm not used to being on screen, you know, this kind of thing. Anyway, what am I going to say? Oh, yeah, I remember. So, it's kind of a long story, but stick with me. So, what the? Hey! You get to tell your stupid ass long Midwestern goodbye stories and I gotta fucking... No! Bring me back. Bring me back, you bastard. Okay, now, what I was saying was, okay, it's a bit of a long story. It starts back in elementary school, and I... Son of a bitch! I'll see you guys this afternoon. I gotta get some sleep. I slept 3 hours last night. Can you tell? Don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. Come on. Subscribe, will you? What's wrong with you? Let's do this.